Please stand. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Here.
Councilmember Schwer?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Nordby?
Here.
Mayor Monge?
Here. All right. To adopt the agenda, anybody move to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
So move. Councilmember Schwiers. Second.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Cole. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a few presentations this evening, and starting off with the Century College presentation of 916 student-built home interior design. I believe Tom Spen is here for that. Hi, Tom. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back again. This year's project's on Eldridge Avenue, as you're well aware of. I was kind of recounting back, I think this is our 12th home we've done in the city of North St. Paul. And so the property was removed, the house was moved from the property back in August era. And then I believe we dug the foundation around October 7th for that project. We're still a few weeks behind schedule. Unfortunately, we had some bad weather kind of get in the way. But we're diligent on it. Currently, as the project sits, it's drywalled. Cabinets are being installed May 1st by St. Paul College's cabinet making program, and I hope to have completion towards the end of June, first week of July. And so that's where we're currently at with the project. Any questions about the scheduling or anything? All right. At this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to Catherine.
No, I got it. Good evening. We're so happy to be here tonight. We have a script even. Hello, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you tonight and for this amazing project. We all feel extremely fortunate to be involved with it, not only for the direct experience it gives the students, both Tom's students and my students, and the St. Paul College cabinet students, but also because it's such a great effort on the part of the city and its residents. The steps you are taking to improve the community are tangible and meaningful. So can we put our slides on? We did. Okay, there's the address. And then the next slide. Okay, let me introduce myself and our team. I am the Century College instructor for this interior design course, and my name is Catherine Harrington. The phenomenal students, can you tell they wrote this script? The phenomenal students this semester include Amy Kaufman, Elena Gorbanova, Janelle Colley, Jill Reagan Scully, and Liliana Rodriguez. The first class met at the beginning of our semester this year on January 12th, and my students will take it from here through the presentation, starting with Janelle.
I'm short, so I'll do that. Okay. And I'll stand on my tiptoes. So, as Tom already mentioned, the project got kicked off in October and is ongoing. So the 2,500 square foot home, that includes the main level and the lower level, finished square feet. It has 3 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms. Next slide, please. We wanted to share just a couple of photos of the job site when we visited on March 30th. It was very exciting for us to finally see the real house after dealing with only those 2-dimensionals over there. Then on the next slide, we just have a few candid shots of the phenomenal team she was telling you about that when we were there visiting, and we had a chance to go over even some details of material selection and meet one of the work crews. So that was really fun for us. Next slide, please. So I'm starting off by just explaining a bit of our process in class and our overall design concept. So our goal for designing the interiors was to create an elevated look with unique materials while being mindful of functional needs of the future owners as well as the budget. So our design took its inspiration from many elements. The style of the house is squarely in the transitional camp because it has a mixture of traditional and updated features. Even though it's a modest size, it has an open concept, and it boasts an attached garage, a mudroom, and a main floor laundry room. So we embraced the cozy space, and we're guided along the way by the design concept we called the modern cottage. We chose a soft green exterior siding to be harmonious in the neighborhood while also having a little bit of a subtly distinctive color. So along with our cottage theme, the beautiful countertops that were generously donated by Innovative Surfaces in Hastings guided our color palette. Our intent was to choose colors with broad appeal while also creating a warm and cozy space. The decision to have a rich brown flooring on the entire main level and a warm beige carpet on the lower level creates an uninterrupted view and an open, spacious flow, even in a relatively small space. We introduced texture in the wood grain of the cabinets and the flooring, and even in light fixtures and their materials and kitchen backsplash tiles. The warm wall colors and textured visuals add to the ambiance of our modern cottage. We are confident that 2701 Eldridge Avenue is going to be a lovely home for its new owners, and we're excited to walk you through more details of this charming design. Next, Amy Kaufman will give you more details on the exterior selections, a furniture layout, and our color palette. Next slide, please.
Hi there. As Janelle mentioned, we chose an understated green exterior siding and shakes with white trim that will blend with the natural elements while also being subtly distinct color choice. The rich brown finish and elegant black hardwood hardware will make the front door an inviting focal point. Coordinating simple black light fixtures at the front door and on either side of the garage provide harmonious accents. Next slide. Although furnishings are not in scope, we wanted to create a layout to give an idea of how the space could be set up to highlight how our selections will complement the future owner's interior. In this depiction of the main level, the open concept living has been set up with a comfortable conversation area in the living room. The island in the kitchen provides work and gathering space and includes some beautiful hanging pendants for task lighting. We have created separate coffee bar and microwave area here, which can alleviate congestion in the kitchen work area. The dining room has a centrally located chandelier and will be able to accommodate a good-sized table, potentially with seating for up to 8 people. The primary bedroom suite has space for a king-size bed and nightstands, as well as a side console table if desired. And we didn't include dressers in the room since the adjacent walk-in closet will provide enough storage space. The second bedroom can accommodate a queen bed and 2 nightstands. There will be room for a dresser, but the generously sized closet might make that unnecessary. Next slide. This is the lower level. The lower level includes a family room, 2 additional bedrooms, and a bathroom. We use carpet here to give it a cozy, warm feel, and easy care vinyl flooring for the bathroom. The family room will be great for movie nights, games, crafting activities, as well as a playroom. Comfortable sectional seating, a TV, shelving, and a table with chairs are easy placed in this versatile space. And the 2 bedrooms on the lower level have room for a single or double beds and dressers as desired by the homeowner. Next slide. Here we have brought our color selections and finishes together to demonstrate how they coordinate and create a harmonious palette and style. And we stated our color story with the kitchen countertops, which include granite island with brown, black, gray, cream tan, rust, and gold. The cabinetry in the kitchen combines painted upper cabinets and a natural finished alder wood for the base cabinetry. When we found these tiles, we knew they'd be perfect for the backsplash. They have slightly distressed and irregularity that creates texture and interest, and they'll be placed in a semi-random pattern that echoes an irregular stone and plaster surface. We chose wall colors that are neutral enough to have broad appeal while also creating a warm and cozy space. The brown flooring in a luxury vinyl plank has subtle variations of light and dark in keeping with our cottage theme, creating a unified look on the main level. The bathroom and laundry countertops are Wilson Art laminate in the travertine marble design, and we selected matte black finishes and natural wood elements for most of the light fixtures and bathroom hardware. In the lower level, a durable textured carpet continues in the warm color tones of beige and tan, and the bedrooms are painted in a slightly color for flexibility and decor, but will keep with warm color story. The basement bathroom has a coordinated look combining dark gray laminate slate countertop, natural alder cabinets, and a mosaic tile and vinyl, with both of these colors on a creamy background. Next up is Jill Reagan Scully, and she'll walk you through the selections and design for the main level.
As we enter through the front door, this charming fixture hangs above the foyer. Our view from the living room to kitchen and dining area flows naturally with the foundation of beautiful flooring. The warm wall color is the continuous backdrop for all of these rooms, adding to a spacious feeling. The unique chandelier hangs in the center of the dining room. Its natural wood frame and slim black candles create an attractive focal point in this gathering space. Oh, next slide. These elevation renderings of the kitchen give a genuine feel for what the room will look like when it's completed. The contrasting cabinets, kitchen backsplash, beadboard island, and coordinating vent hood create a customized look. The distinctive island pendants provide task lighting while beautifully coordinating with the other black fixtures and dining room chandelier. The coffee bar with coordinating stone countertop and tile backsplash not only offers additional storage and a place to accommodate a microwave, but also gives an elevated feel. The kitchen includes stainless steel appliances and fixtures. It should be the next slide, shouldn't it? Thank you. The kitchen includes stainless steel appliances and fixtures, including a gas slide-in range, vent hood, French door refrigerator, and a double bowl sink. The cabinet door style is pictured on the upper right, and paint samples for both cabinet and wall colors are on the upper left. The black cabinet hardware and faucet fixture coordinate with the black accents in the island and in the light fixtures. A small flush mount light provides illumination above the sink. The perimeter countertop material consists of Caesarstone quartz Taj Royale, and the island countertop will be fabricated from Yellow River granite. Alder wood will be used for the base cabinets, along with this beautiful luxury vinyl tile across the main floor. Simple profile baseboards will be finished to match the flooring. You will notice the irregular surface and unique glazing on the backsplash tile. Moving on to the primary suite and the guest bathroom in the main hall, here is another collection of pictures and samples. The black fixtures are repeated here, including faucet, shower head, hooks, and towel ring. The shower, surround, toilet, and sink will all be a soft white. Paint samples for the vanity and the walls continue the warm tones from the other rooms. The laminate in silver travertine pulls all the colors together. Our favorite design element is the full wall mirror with brushed gold sconces positioned directly on the glass. This unique placement creates additional reflected light. The hardware on the vanity drawers and cupboards, also in a brushed gold, unifies the elegant built-in vanity and is another customized feature that is beautiful and functional. The elevation in the lower corner of the slide gives a better idea how this installation will look. The guest bathroom is similar to the one in the primary suite with a few differences. We selected black fixtures and hardware, soft white for the shower, sink, and toilet, and silver travertine marble laminate for the counters. Beautiful pendant lights with mixed metals of black and gold will hang from the ceiling on either side of the vanity, again, creating that reflective light. And here's an elevation to show how the pendant lights on either side of the vanity mirror will give this space a unique and elegant look. And next we have Liliana Rodriguez to finish up the description of the main level and take you through the lower level.
Hello. This elevation, next slide, please. There, okay. These elevation renderings of the laundry and mudroom depict the unique details of the space. A conveniently located main floor laundry room and mudroom adjacent to the garage entry. We were really pleased to find this compact stacking washer and dryer set from LG in a soft green color that was in harmony with our color palette. Next slide, please. We choose this creamy white for the beadboard back wall of our custom bench and shelving, a great drop zone for coats, shoes, and bags that has cabinets, hooks, and cubbies. We repeated the silver travertine marble laminate for the laundry tub cabinet counter, and of course a soft warm wall color in this room too. Next slide, please. As we move downstairs, we have a storyboard with samples of the finishes and materials we chose for this area. It's a kind of clean slate space that will be flexible, and we chose simple ceiling-mounted lighting to allow for different configurations. The lower level has 2 bedrooms and a full bathroom. Here is a sample of the beige and tan texture carpet that will be the flooring throughout. Next slide, please. In the bathroom, natural alder wood cabinetry will be topped with contrasting dark gray slate laminate. This nicely complements the vinyl flooring and the black hardware. The light fixture above the vanity provides a simple light source with pretty glass globes that have an irregular surface that is beautiful and hides dust. Next slide, please. The elevation here shows how the light fixtures and cabinetry will look in the space. Next slide, please. As a quick review, we have gathered the lighting selections throughout the house to demonstrate how nicely they work together to create a unified style while bringing a variety of shapes and textures into different rooms. Next slide, please. Here we've gathered the cabinet finishes and countertops. The colors and textures are soft and restful neutrals that still have enough variety to create visual interest. Next slide, please. As mentioned, we made the decision to use rich brown floorings on the entire main floor and warm beige carpet on the lower level to create an uninterrupted view and an open, spacious flow. The mosaic tile design for the lower level bathroom is a durable sheet vinyl that adds a fun accent. As we said in the beginning, our design goal were to create an elevated look with unique materials while creating function and budget in mind. We've done our best to give that to you. We'd like to thank our team member, Elena Gorbanova, for moving us through the technical and visual parts of our presentation.
So, in conclusion, we are very grateful for this project and for the opportunity that we've had to collaborate with Catherine and Tom and all of the vendors who helped with this effort. We thank you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, anyone?
Looks awesome.
Don't you just want to move in right now?
No? Makes me want to pick out a house.
Your program's put some phenomenal things together over the years within our St. Paul.
This is just such a wonderful program. We really admire you, and everybody should be doing this, right? Okay. We'll have these, I don't know, we're not leaving these here, or are we?
No, we'll probably take them, unless you want us to leave them there, you know.
Okay,
Not
Yeah,
unless
we
you're
have
gonna
to
do it
go.
to my house.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
thank you all.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
all for your presentation.
At least you have something. All right, next up is for a presentation is Ramsey County presentation on county HRA levy. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here this evening and really appreciate the invitation to come back. I remember the first time when we were first looking at the HRA and everything was virtual at that point, and it was quite the discussion that I know the previous council had. A couple of members are the same. But anyhow, I'm here to introduce not only the HRA chair, Commissioner Mai Chong Zhang, but also give you some information on what's been happening. Because when we were here before, we were talking about what we wanted to do, but we didn't have results yet because we didn't have our HRA levy in place, didn't know what was going to be coming, didn't have the ARPA funds. There were a lot of things that were in flux at that point. So I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised, or not really surprised. I know I wasn't surprised by it, but the work that's been done and how quickly we have made such progress in moving forward. And I have to tell you that I think you'll find, as you are looking through this, and I know that you have a decision not to make tonight about whether or not North St. Paul wants to join in the HRA levy. And I will tell you, from my perspective, the amount of money that is going to go in from North St. Paul, you are going to get a lot more than that back, given some of the things that need to be done across the suburban areas. But the idea with the HRA levy was that half of it would be in the city of St. Paul, half of it would be in the suburbs, and I think that we've got some great opportunities for North St. Paul, and so I'm really pleased to be here to introduce Commissioner Mai Chong Zhang. She is the HRH, Housing and Redevelopment Authority Chair. And I am the vice chair of that, and we've been having a great time once we got the HRA levy in place and some of the other funds, and really just having such a robust program. We have incredible staff, and you'll hear from them tonight as well.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. What a privilege and an honor it is to be here, and thank you for having us. I'm Mai Chong Zhang, newly elected to the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners and also elected as the chair of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. It is truly an exciting time, and I hope that you will be pleased from tonight's presentation too. I just got an updated report and also presentation today, this exact same one today, and I was just overall very pleased and just excited about the amount of work and collaboration that can happen across our county. I ran on an affordable housing platform because I heard from my constituents and people that I spoke with that housing is getting expensive. From our homeowners to our renters, it's to a point where it's unsustainable, and that's also due to the lack of housing that's being built, right, all across the state. So as with many of our communities, Ramsey County has a growing need for affordable housing. Our neighbors are paying too much, where 65,000 households in the county pay more than 30% of their income on housing. That means that those disposable income are not coming back into our communities here. They're going to pay for the rents and to the mortgage companies, right? They're not being used on Main Street. They're not being used and invested into our communities. And so while 30,000 households pay more than, and then 30,000 households pay more than 50% of their income on housing. So it's truly unacceptable at this time, and that's why I'm so passionate about it and so glad that the county got this tool. We have another tool in our toolbox and another tool to be able to invest in truly affordable housing. And what I had mentioned is just what this means, what these numbers translate to is just housing instability overall, where one missed paycheck could result in an eviction or homelessness. And what ends up happening is we as a community, we pay for it. Right, we pay for the housing instability, and then on that back end with like emergency rental assistance, and also needing to support with legal aid services at the county. So I just know and believe that as we are unified, we are able to invest and achieve that vision to make sure that all members of our communities are safe and are housed. But then the work here still needs to continue. We still need at least 15,000 units of deeply affordable housing for the county's lowest income residents, and that's at 30% area median income. And we know that this need is growing. And so far, Ramsey County has already invested in 3,136 units so far. 3,136 units so far. And that's about 21% of the 15,000 needed units that we need. But that is a huge increase in local investments, over $30 million in 2022 alone. So that means we just have a huge opportunity to partner with one another and be unified and also be a model nationally too. And thank you to my colleagues here who are very involved in both our local association of counties as well as national, where I just am hopeful that we can be a model and show that as unified all across our cities and our county, that we can build affordable housing together. Again, we need upwards of 11,800 more units to cover the existing gap in deeply affordable housing units. And we cannot build more affordable housing without our whole community. That's why I'm so hopeful that here tonight, you will see that our talented, dedicated, and caring staff who have been really thinking through these policies and also seeing the amount of the results of their work, that I'm just so proud to help support and lead with them, alongside with them. So I will now introduce Carrie Collins, our Director of Community and Economic Development, who will walk through our PowerPoint here as well as her staff here. So thank you.
All right, good evening. Thank you, Commissioners Reinhardt and Commissioner Zhang. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. I'm Carrie Collins. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development and at Ramsey County, and proud North St. Paul grad, go Polars. So happy to be here. It's always just brings me back to a lot of good memories when I'm traveling around North St. Paul. Just wanted to walk you through the first year of the HRA levy. So I recall too, it feels almost like a lifetime ago coming onto the screen. It was a virtual meeting to talk about, as Commissioner Reinhardt mentioned, the plans to enact Ramsey County Housing and Redevelopment Authority. You'll recall historically we've always had an HRA, but this 2022 is the first year that we levied for critical housing infrastructure. So a little bit of background. So as mentioned, I think it was early 2021, we brought to you a presentation. At that time, the City Council considered it and decided to opt out for the first year and to kind of understand what was it that the city council wanted to do with its HRA, and, you know, look to see how the Ramsey County HRA was going to kind of unfold during these kind of unique times. So at this time, the area of operation is all of the county, with the exception of North St. Paul. The city of St. Paul in 2021 did opt in to be considered into the Ramsey County HRA. As far as the HRA levy goes, Minnesota statute allows counties and cities to levy for low to moderate income housing for both the preservation and the construction, and also for blight prevention and blight mitigation and removal. So that means dilapidated structures, whether that be commercial or residential, that you can use those funds to either rehab, rectify, demolish, create new, really intended to revitalize communities, downtown, and critical corridors, and of course create a deeply affordable housing infrastructure. As part of this HRA levy, our goal was to provide flexible programming across all of Ramsey County. We know that the unique needs of, you know, Gem Lake may be different than the needs within the city of St. Paul. The needs within Arden Hills may be different than that of city of North St. Paul. Each community within Ramsey County has a different look, feel, landscape, and certainly a different housing stock. And therefore, there may be some need for new construction, or there may be some for naturally occurring affordable housing for preservation to invest in what's currently there. Or it might be down payment assistance for first-time home buyers to gain access into home ownership. And so, and then of course, deeply affordable housing infrastructure. That 30 to 50% AMI level is critical in all parts of the region as well. So we wanted to create a flexible funding source to meet the needs of the kind of diverse needs of Ramsey County. And we also wanted to make sure that we had flexible funds. Prior to the HRA levy, what we had available to us were community development block grant and home dollars through the federal government, through HUD. And these are entitlement programs where Ramsey County historically has passed through funds, and North St. Paul has certainly historically made application for these funds and has been the recipient of some really great funds for projects that qualify. But that was the extent of our disbursement historically, up until both the HRA levy and also the American Rescue Plan Act funds that the county received as well. So our spending plan has kind of been used as a roadmap to kind of use the intersections between critical corridors like North St. Paul's Main Street to ready it for affordable housing, to find kind of mixed land use corridors that may be ready for the new construction of new residential. Maybe that means affordable homeownership, maybe that means multifamily, but again, to create flexibility around what's possible. At the time of these conversations in 2021, it became very clear that our city partners said, how do we make sure we see a return on investment? And both suburban Ramsey County said, we need to make sure 50% of what you collect is returned to suburban Ramsey County. Conversely, the city of St. Paul said, we will agree to enter into your Ramsey County HRA so long as 50% is returned to the city of St. Paul. We said, that sounds great. So in terms of that balance between suburban and city of St. Paul projects, that is something historically that Ramsey County has done in terms of balancing investment through our Environmental Response Fund and other programs throughout the county. So it wasn't unique to us, although we understand in order for us to achieve that parity, as we'll talk about in a few slides later, there needs to be, of course, applications coming from a wide array of communities every year. And then lastly, we made a commitment to communities that we would not exceed 10% of the HRA levy for administrative costs. Our intent is not to levy for affordable housing and redevelopment efforts and then just to pay for staff. So we wanted to commit that 10% would be the cap associated with admin so that communities could reap the benefits and see that return on investments when they make an application for funding to Ramsey County. So this is a little bit about, again, the funds that are available for affordable housing at this time at Ramsey County. We talked a little bit about Community Development Block Grant and Home. Again, that's a federal program. Ramsey County receives an allocation. The city of St. Paul receives an allocation because it's based off population size. And so we function as a pass-through agency of those federal dollars to communities when you make application. And then the Environmental Response Fund is really there for when you have a redevelopment project and you anticipate, or what's discovered is, soil contamination. That fund, it comes in annually, and it allows for us to kind of write down the costs associated with environmental cleanup, so that, all of Ramsey County, for the most part, is built out. So everything's a redevelopment project, and therefore having these cleanup funds is essential to making sure we can revitalize our communities. As we're talking about today, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority levy, that brings in approximately $11 million, or it did this year, or 2022, it brought in about 11.1, and this year is about 11.3. And so, of course, that's a levy that is available to all of Ramsey County, with the exception of North St. Paul. And we'll talk a little bit about why that became challenging in terms of promoting programs. There were many times where North St. Paul residents would try to take advantage of our programs, but we would say not quite yet, but maybe in the future. And then lastly, our ARPA funds. Ramsey County received a ARPA allocation, and $37 million, or almost a third of that allocation, was dedicated to deeply affordable housing infrastructure. So through inclusive housing development solicitations, we've spent quite a bit of time obligating and deploying those funds, because those funds have to be obligated by the end of '24 and spent by '26. So ARPA has really been a really great release valve, or relief valve, if you will, when we haven't had resources in the past, unlike our other metropolitan partners or county partners in the metro who have been levying for decades. Ramsey County has not, and so this ARPA investment has really functioned as kind of a bolus dose to really try to make an impact in the data that you heard from Commissioner Zhang in terms of the number of residents that are currently housing cost burdened. All right, with that, I'll invite Deputy Director Josh Wilson up to talk a little bit about 2022 spend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Quickly, Josh Wilson, Deputy Director within our Community Economic Development Department at the county. As Carrie alluded to in those first few slides, housing infrastructure was a primary goal of the use of these funds. And so the graph that you see on the screen really does bear out this past year where our focus has been. Nearly 70% of the funds that we receive were deployed into projects that were affordable housing infrastructure focused. We did introduce 2 additional programs, well, one new program and one revamped program. One is our critical corridors. This was a new program that was in response to predominantly our suburban partners requesting more flexible dollars going towards early planning stage work, things like pre-development, planning, some commercial corridor work. And so we introduced that program in the third quarter of last year. And then lastly, on that fourth column, I just point out wealth generation. This is a growing bar for us. And this represents really just about 3 months of our work. Within this wealth generation area, this is associated with our down payment assistance program. So Carrie spoke briefly to HOME, which was a federal entitlement program, as one that we focused down payment assistance on. That's a program that has, over the last several years, and I think we do have a slide on this, had seen waning participation, mostly because the HUD rules were really restrictive and prevented a lot of folks from taking advantage of first home buyer down payment assistance. So we've kind of retooled that, moved it into a much more flexible spending source. So just quickly on this slide, ensuring HRA funding be seen as an important and sometimes critical resource to closing the gap on affordable housing infrastructure and advancing exciting projects along the implementation continuum from the beginning, as I noted in those pre-development, all the way to the final gap financing of a project, has been a real predominant focus for us here in '22. I'm pleased to say that even just in 1 year, we had nearly half of our Ramsey County jurisdictions participating in this HRA levy. I will preface that by saying if you apply that with the other funding streams that we did at the exact same time, of American Rescue Plan, even some CDBG and HOME, we're well over that half. That's just a testament that both the marketplace responded to this new tool in the toolbox, but two, that we were doing our best to make sure that our city partners were fully aware of what offerings are available, not just through typical city means, but also to their residents. So that was an early learning process for us, but one that we caught on to definitely towards the end of the year. As Carrie kind of spoke to, the primary emphasis of this, these and commissioners, in not just the number of units. So we definitely have a mismatch in the number of units that are at affordable. We also have a very deep mismatch in how affordable those units really are. And so a big critical change that we've made since the HRA levy has been introduced within the county is that we've taken what was normally a kind of a directive or a desired was to create or impact as many affordable housing units as possible. With these new funding streams, we've been able to kind of do that, but also be really intentional about targeting our funding towards deeply affordable units. So in prior years where we may have seen between 0 and 5% of the total units we impacted to be at that 30% level, in 22, over 20% were at that level just within HRA levy funding. So if I could show you some other additional slides on ARPA, you'd see a much greater share of that. So, Carrie, you wanna?
So down payment assistance really is a huge wealth generation program that we created through the HRA levy. We heard quite a bit about, what do we do with this aging single-family housing stock? How can we rehabilitate it and make a way for incoming affordable homeowners? And, we really had limitations, as mentioned, within the home program through HUD. They set these kind of blanket federal standards that don't create sometimes a mismatch depending on the community. So at the time of the change, the maximum valuation of a home that could receive home funds for down payment assistance was about $247,000. And when we did a search of suburban Ramsey County, that at the time, considering the kind of supply shortage, yielded about 5 homes. And so we moved it out from underneath our home program and put it underneath our HRA levy. We made changes structurally so that more individuals could take advantage of the program in terms of the grant allocation associated with the down payment assistance. And we elevated that valuation to be $372,000. So this really hits the 60 to 80% area median income homeowner. And we have 2 different types of programs now. One is first-time homeowner, and then one is first-generation homeowner. We have a lot of individuals in Ramsey County who have not been the recipient of a legacy of intergenerational wealth building. And so most of the individuals that have received assistance have been those first-generation home buyers. So again, it was a matter of doing maybe 2 to 3 down payment assistant loans a year through the federal home program, and now we're doing dozens and able to get more individuals into homes, creating greater stability within a neighborhood and also for the homeowner. As part of this particular program, I would say in terms of the kind of suite of programming available, in addition to critical corridors, the down payment assistance is probably where we heard most from residents within North St. Paul wanting to gain access. I had our homeownership specialist kind of do a tally, and she said it was about 11 individuals over the course of the last 6 months from North St. Paul were trying to gain access to the down payment assistance program. So it's just something to be mindful of when considering programs at the municipal level or entering into Ramsey County programs, the kind of array of opportunity available for the residents here. In terms of critical corridor, here you can kind of see the breakdown between St. Paul and suburban Ramsey County. This suite of programming is really, we base this programming off of city feedback that we heard through our kind of qualitative interviews with our community partners and our summits to say, where would the cities like Ramsey County to come and support? And we heard flexibility. We need flexibility when we have a project that's coming in. It might not fit, the Met Council's program or this program, so we need kind of an array of offerings. And so As Josh previously mentioned, we do have this kind of, we've got pre-development planning, we've got planning funds. So if, for example, you may have heard of the Rice-Larpenter Alliance, that, between 3 different communities, a grant went to them to do the planning up and down that corridor so that that corridor can continue to thrive and seek reinvestment. And then all the way from development and infrastructure, how do we, again, create and remove barriers to create greater access to jobs, greater access to transit and to housing along our critical corridors in Ramsey County. And then lastly, what's available to suburban Ramsey County is a commercial corridor initiative. And so that's where many cities within Ramsey County have a main street. And we have been going like gangbusters trying to work with our small business community to really get through what they're calling this 4th wave of economic recovery. How do we sustain our small business community? How do we grow our small business community? And how do we create really vibrant commercial corridors that really allow communities to thrive? So you don't start to see vacant storefronts and you don't start to see some of the issues that go along with that. And so that commercial corridor initiative is part of that suite of programming as well. So here again, you can see the kind of balance between investment of St. Paul and suburban Ramsey County. And with that said, across multifamily investments, down payment assistance, and critical corridor, we really took our commitment to the cities very seriously in terms of parity and geographic distribution, in terms of who we're investing in, how we're investing, and tracking it against, of course, our economic inclusion plan and our equitable development framework so that we're growing livable jobs and we're growing really a suite of a range of housing infrastructure. And we achieved a 50-50 balance this year. And I say that's awesome and we can celebrate that and that's wonderful. And I stress that, that might not always be the case in years to come. We do need to make sure that there's kind of a healthy degree of applications coming in from every community that is a part of this Ramsey County HRA, that every community sees, okay, what's the next project on the list that can benefit from the Ramsey County HRA? And this year we had an overwhelming response from our city partners. So we're very pleased. We were able to see, get the parity that was required of us, and we will continue to do that on an annual basis. And so with that, the few more North St. Paul kind of specific slides here. So in 2022, you will see that the programs that were available to North St. Paul, that the city of North St. Paul was able to benefit from that. There was a homeowner, a resident, that was able to come in as we were transitioning from first home, which is the down payment assistance, to the HRA levy. They were able to come in and benefit from one of those last loans. And so North St. Paul was the recipient of that, some additional mortgage assistance, and then a grant for a $75,000 grant for environmental response. And there you can kind of see the profile associated with a 5-year kind of investment of the resources we've had to date across both renter-occupied, our first home, energy efficiency, our CEO Next, and some of these are general levy programs, some of these are HRA programs now. For example, CEO Next and Open to Business, these are county-wide initiatives where businesses can take advantage of technical assistance, and if you're a smart or a startup business that's looking to grow to a second stage business, you can participate in a cohort through the CEO Next initiative. So North St. Paul hasn't certainly shied away from taking advantage of programs in the past, and so we just wanted to make sure you saw that spread as well. And we will pause for any questions at this time.
Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation today. I'm just curious on how the decision-making is made and how it may or may not include the municipalities.
Yes, absolutely. So when we enacted the HRA levy, there was a statute that indicated that all communities that created an HRA after, I think it was like 1974, but don't quote me, but it was in the 1970s, all communities that came in after the creation of a Ramsey County HRA which is when our authority was established, that if the county decided to levy, it would be subject to that levy. There were two communities that established its HRA prior to the Ramsey County HRA, and that was the city of St. Paul and North St. Paul. So as part of that, because of the early creation of the HRA, it was through a resolution of support, you can opt in to be a part of the Ramsey County HRA. That doesn't mean that your authority somehow merges into that of the counties. It just means that you're saying, yes, the county can levy within your area of operation. And so at the time of 2021, the city of St. Paul took it under consideration and they passed a resolution of support. North St. Paul I don't know if it was an official memorialized vote or not, but they chose not to pass a resolution of support at that time. And so that was kind of the impetus for that. If the city of North St. Paul wants to take this up for consideration this year for tax year 2024 or for subsequent years, you can pass a resolution of support. You would have to do that by July 1st to be considered into the next year. So for example, if you wanted to be considered into 2024 programming, you as a council would need to pass a resolution of support by July 1st of this year. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
You mentioned it was North St. Paul and St. Paul, so if we opt in, does that mean we have to stay in because then we're as far as that? So is there if it didn't work out, how would that work?
So comparably, if you opt in, and this is the question that both St. Paul and North St. Paul previously asked as well, if you opt in and you determine, while we're not seeing the benefit of joining, we don't want to be a part of this in the years to come, you can pass a resolution opting out, essentially. You comparably would need to do that by July 1st of the next taxable year because it's assumed, unless you take action, that you will be in the area of operation each subsequent year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? No, I guess there's none.
All right, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next up for our presentations is tax increment financing, or TIF. And Dan Winnick, our finance director, is here to speak to that.
Mayor, council members, that's a tough act to follow. I got to see the design of the beautiful home that's being developed, and then we get the HRA level. So, and I get to do TIF. It's somehow it's just not really fair, but I guess that's life sometimes. So I thought I'd start out a little bit differently today, because TIF is simple from a concept that TIF is calculated, and you receive TIF basically because something meets a but-for clause. In other words, without TIF, a development wouldn't occur. So but for the assistance of a tax increment district, you wouldn't have a project. So in certain ways, it's pretty simple from that standpoint. It's also pretty simple from the standpoint of what's the tax increment that district is going to generate, because at the time that a tax increment district is created, whatever the tax that is currently being collected, the value of that property and the tax that it generates stays set at that point in time. That'll still keep going and being distributed to the county, the city, the school district, and the miscellaneous taxing districts that are included in a unique taxing authority. Any growth of value will then end up creating that difference, and it'll be collected as tax increment, which will go into the tax increment district itself to pay off if there's any obligations. So that part of it's simple. The rest of it requires us to really have a TIF consultant and a legal. We use Taft and Associates for our legal, and we use Baker Tilly for our TIF. And so this is really meant to just kind of give a higher overview. If we have more specific questions on things, then we would end up contacting our TIF consultants and our legal. But this is just kind of just to try to get kind of an overview for the council members. So if I can get the slideshow to start here, and I'm not seeing my, well, I'll just have to take one at a time. So the purpose of this TIF presentation is just an overview of the tax increment financing, how a TIF district is created, what drives the need for financing, the types of TIF districts, eligible costs, common methods of financing options, North St. Paul TIF districts, and expiration dates to kind of show you where we're at right now, what TIF districts we have, when they're estimated to be expiring. Last year, the city went out and authorized the pooling of some unobligated TIF funds in 3 districts. The total amount was $1.1 million. We have not designated the use of those funds in any way, shape, or form. It was through the use of some special legislation that had occurred during the COVID time frame, which was really kind of, I think, intended more to spur on economic development in the economy, create new jobs. And so we have an opportunity with that $1.1 million to utilize it to help another TIF district, to help a development occur. Again, if we have some sort of idea of how to use those funds, it would require city council approval, so it would be brought back in front of the city council for your review and your approval at that point in time. The funds need to be spent by the end of 2025. If those funds are not spent, they'll go back to the original TIF districts. They'll remain in those TIF districts until we decertify or the expiration of those TIF districts. And then those funds would end up going back to the county to be distributed to all the taxing authorities. Kind of look at the general pooling authority, and then really we have a recommendation, I think, that the city really doesn't have a TIF policy. And the city really should develop a TIF policy in which to help staff make decisions and to have better communication with developers on whether a potential project site would be eligible, and whether, and that the city council would be, in agreement with the development of that TIF. So, what is it? It's a financing tool that was established by the state legislation through statutes. How was it created? Kind of went through that with the original tax capacity and through the, time frame of the growth of a district that we captured that tax increment financing. There's kind of a little graph to kind of show you the basics of it. There's the base taxes. Again, that's captured at the point in time a tax increment district is created. Then there's the incremental taxes that goes towards the paying off of the TIF eligible expenditures. And then after the tax increment district is decertified, all of that new tax base then gets taxed. So then it generates and helps lower down the tax rates in a community. How is a TIF district created? There's a project area. The city of North St. Paul is one big project area, and then we have separate TIF districts. And there's a lengthy process into developing a TIF district itself. There has to be a specific project that's identified. There's a TIF plan that's created. There's a budget, a geographical boundaries. There's a purpose. There's a whole public hearing process that needs to take place. There's notification that needs to go to the county, to the school districts, so that they can weigh in on that TIF district, because they will not be receiving any increased property taxes until the decertification of that TIF district. And then there's the certification process. What drives the need for public financing? It can be extraordinary redevelopment costs. It can be extraordinary affordable housing costs. You can have a property owner that's holding out that wants additional funds for land. There's development needs that you just can't pay for. So there's a gap that's identified. You may have a project where you are spending more to, build infrastructure for future development. So again, driving up those costs. The developer wants a less risk and more return than typical market conditions. And then just purely the market competition that's out there. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are 5 different TIF districts. There's an economic development, there's a housing, there's redevelopment, renewal and renovation, and soil conditions. Each one of them by statute has a different length of number of years for a duration, and they have different qualifications in which there needs to be met. Eligible costs that are covered that you can use the TIF funds for: public improvements, land acquisition, soil correction and site grading, site preparation and demolition, relocation, cost of qualifying housing, financing fees, capitalized interest, and administrative costs. Some common methods for financing options are upfront, and that's where the city could go and issue tax increment bonds. They can be, if it's less than 20% of the debt service cost, there doesn't need to be a referendum. If it's higher than that, there has to be a referendum to issue those bonds. There can be an interfund loan or risk mitigation factors. Upfront costs put more of the risk on the city. The next option that you see as a pay-as-you-go puts the risk in the developers. Here, if we do the upfront, then if the tax increment that we receive is not enough to pay our debt off, we still have to pay our debt off. And so we take the risk with that. If you do a pay-as-you-go, which are known as pay-go notes, then the developer pays the cost, and we're basically reimbursing the developer over time through a percentage of the tax increment that is collected in the year. And usually they receive 2 payments a year. So the majority of financing that North St. Paul currently has is on a pay-go note, with the exception of the 7th Street and Margaret TIF district, and that one we actually went out and issued the tax increment bonds for. We currently have a total of 8 active TIF districts, and you can see their expiration dates. At the end of last year, we did decertify a tax increment district that could have gone to 2037. Again, if you remember, the reason for decertifying is that all of our obligations had already been paid off, and there was no more need to be collecting that tax increment. And so we decertified that, so that increased value of that development will now go out onto the tax rolls for pay 2024. Actually, I think we met the deadline at the end of the year, so it's actually will be in this current pay 2023. Kind of spoke about the pooling of TIF, of 3 TIF districts with unobligated tax increment. Again, the funds need to be used by the end of 2025. You can see some of the purposes of the pooled funds, so it pretty much gives a little bit more latitude than we're going to see in the next slide that talks about some of the general pooling requirements and uses. And again, I think this special legislation that came in was really, as you can see, is really to kind of create jobs, especially during the COVID period. And then the general pooling authority for a portion of TIF dollars spent within project area, subject to limitations below, that if the district was created and just to see just one more of the complications. If it was after July 1st of 1982, but before April 30th of 1990, there was no limits that were imposed on the pooling. Then if it was between April 30th of 1990 and June 30th of 1995, it was 25% of all types of districts. You could use the unobligated tax increment to be pooled. In other words, when you pool it, you can utilize it for other tax increment districts. And then after June of 30th, 1995, that 25% of the redevelopment districts and 20% for other types of districts. And again, that needs to be used on TIF eligible costs. And when we do have an idea or a thought that we're going to utilize TIF dollars, it's really important that we consult with our TIF consultant and also with our legal and make sure that we're meeting all of the complex statutes that are related to TIF districts. And then again, staff really believes that the city should develop a TIF policy. It'll assist staff in achieving the city council's vision and goals for the city. It establishes the city's position related to TIF for development. It assists staff in conversation with developers on redevelopment projects. It helps to ensure TIF assistance is used in a consistent and equitable manner. And in the policy that gets developed should be flexible to allow the city to evaluate projects on merit. And kind of went through this material kind of quickly. I don't want you to be here all night. And Brian always goes like this, okay, Dan, yeah, cut it a little bit. So open for some questions and discussions. And there probably will be questions I can't answer, but certainly we'll get answers back to the city council. There's also, and I will email it tomorrow morning, there actually, the state auditor's office just last week, as I've already published this, had a nice little, it's about a half an hour presentation on TIF. So it kind of goes over some of the basics. And so I'll send that out to all of the council members so you can see that. It was actually, I should have just used that, but so if you have any questions or any discussion.
Any members, any questions?
I just want to say thank you. This is something I asked for just to help us make sure that we're making smart, informed decisions in the future going forward if we decide to use this. So thank you very much. I appreciate putting this together.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. And so it was kind of dry material, so we just have to end a little bit and have a little bit of fun. So can I have a T?
T.
Can I have an I?
I.
Can I have an F? TIF, there we go.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm all right. I'll accept all responsibility for those.
All right, move on to the consent agenda.
Bet. Thank you, Mayor. Up next is the consent agenda. Item A is April 4th, 2023 workshop minutes. Item B, April 4th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Item C, general claims of $1,306,894.04. Item D, HRA claims of $35,416.58. Item E, purchase 2 3-phase fuse cabinets and 5 single-phase fuse cabinets. Item F, solar-powered LED crosswalk signage. Just to remind you guys, those one will be in front of the post office, and then the other 2 will be on 11th Avenue where the bus shelters or the bus stops will be. Item G, terminate the City of North St. Paul's COVID-19 operational policy. Item H, building permit report for March 2023. And item I, resolution accepting donations for March of 2023.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody like to pull anything at this time? Nope. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
So move, Councilmember Cole?
No.
No?
I'll second it. You can move it.
Tie goes to the senior. So that,
Oh, a shot at the age.
Member Norby, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. All right, thank you. Okay, next is meeting open to public, so please keep within 3 minutes. Sue Springborn, come on down.
Hi, I'm Sue Springborn, President of the North St. Paul Historical Society, and I had no plans of coming here tonight until, excuse me, I looked at your agenda and I terminate the City of North St. Paul's COVID-19 operational policy. And it reminded me that when COVID started, I, as President of the Historical Society, said, this is history. I went to our 1918 newspapers and found practically nothing. And now we don't even have a newspaper. So I was determined to have a COVID file. Well, I've put like 6 pieces of paper in there. That's my COVID file. So I just wanted to mention that because we no longer have a newspaper, so we won't have anything. And there are stories out there. I did have Linda Baumeister, who was the one of the photographers for the Lily newspaper. I asked her to go out and take pictures because if you remember, there was closed signs up everywhere. So I thought those would be interesting to have, because right now is tomorrow's history. You know, just as we look back at 1918 pandemic, people are going to look, there's going to be another pandemic. So people are going to look back at this one. And I just thought it'd be nice to have stories. Happy ones, sad ones, whatever. There are story. So I would like to encourage anyone that has a story to send it to me. You can get a hold of me probably through the city or through my email online on the city website. Even if it's a little bit like this, just a little anecdote. I think it'll be interesting to people in the future, and I think that should be one of our jobs, is to document what's happening and what has happened. So, and while I'm here, I'll just mention that these kind people, most of them have responded to me about our Tuesday, April 25th general meeting at the Historical Society, and everybody enjoyed having those of you that came last time, and now we'd like you to come to the meeting again. And Brian, I've invited you also. You don't have to come, but you're invited. Just as a very informal, how are things going? You know, everybody wonders, how are things going? I realized one day that this is probably the first time in maybe 40 years or maybe ever, I don't believe there's anyone on the council that grew up in North St. Paul. And that's different. It's different for this little town. I think it's refreshing. Not that the other people weren't good at what they did, but I think new things can be refreshing and good for us. And challenging, more challenging for you maybe, but sometimes, well, that's the way we always did it. Doesn't mean it's the best way of doing something. So I love this. I love it. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You got it. Thank you. And we also are posting it because there's going to be a quorum there, so we're
right.
So I
Right.
appreciate Carrie mentioning that, so we got that out. So we're good to go.
Yeah, we're not going to ask you to rule on anything.
So can I bring my gavel or not?
No.
All right,
I
stays
have one,
behind.
actually.
Thank you. Appreciate it. John Schmalz, please. Yeah. Hi, John.
Mayor and Council, John Schmall, 2750 Chisholm Avenue. The subject is notifications on the email that come by email of the meetings and what they contain. And the last meeting, this is what occurred, but I didn't have time, 3 minutes. So you got another subject, you can't have two. But anyway, the time before the meeting, there's a lot going on, the big snowstorm and all that. I didn't get to read it about the meetings, the emails, until Monday. And the reason I read it was that there was a notification that there was a change to the workshop. So immediately, I want to know what the change is. So I went back to the Friday notification email and said, okay, this is what this looks like, and now what does the new one look like? Well, you couldn't do it because there was no longer any, the documents, it wasn't there, or the change. There was no change. So what had happened was when the change was made, it updated the original document with the change. So you had no idea what the original document was and what was contained in that original document. I had to sit there and go, I had my desktop lit up, I had my laptop lit up, and I had my phone to see what the email said and tried to figure out where was the change. And after 20 minutes, which was longer than the council meeting that night, I just gave up. I couldn't find it. And in talking to Jenny, she suggested to me that in the future, I print the documents that first come out, and then I would be able to say, oh, here is the change. I don't think that is the correct way of doing things. There's something wrong with your program that updates the original file based on the updated file. So you'll never know what the original was when there is a change. So that's bad software somewhere along the line.
All right, thank you. All right. Oh, thank you. Do we have anyone online today? I don't even know. Okay, thank you. All right. Next item.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the city business action items and recommendations. Item A is participation in the new national opioid settlements. As you may recall, round one was with the manufacturers of the opioids. Round two now is with the distributors of them. So it's like Walgreens, Walmart, places like that that have that. So it is requested that the City Council approve a resolution, which is a memorandum of agreement authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents to ensure the City of North St. Paul's participation in the multi-state settlement relating to opioid supply chain participants and in Minnesota opioid state subdivision memorandum of agreement. So requesting to approve the resolution, please.
A request to approve the resolution.
So moved.
So move. Councilmember Norby.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the request of the Independent School District 622 for 2 school resource officers. We have Chief Bevenroth here to discuss, along with a couple of sergeants.
Thank you, City Manager Frandl, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thanks for having us here tonight. I have here with me Officer Joe Allen, who's the current SRO at North High in 622, and Sergeant DeCory, who is most recently the SRO in 622. So happy to have them both here with me. To start off, just wanted to provide, excuse me, a little background on the screen. There we go. Just to provide a brief understanding, I think occasionally there's confusion on what a school resource officer actually is. So I wanted to set the foundation. It's a licensed Minnesota peace officer. 2 of them are here who are school resource officers or were. So in Minnesota, to get a peace officer license, you have to have a college degree, minimum of an associate's degree. You have to pass the Minnesota Peace Officer Education Program, a thorough background check, a psychological examination, a medical examination, and a drug test. We also have a lot of training throughout that program and ongoing training. Some of that includes crisis intervention, and mental illness, crisis, conflict management and mediation, recognizing and valuing community diversity and cultural differences to include implicit bias. We're trained in communication skills, de-escalation, ethical reasoning, critical thinking, logical reasoning, problem solving, and decision-making. We're also trained in firearms and less lethal force options, active shooter response, autism spectrum disorder, adolescent brain development, and establishing and maintaining successful relationships with diverse students, trauma-informed practices, and supporting students with disabilities, as well as state, federal, and city ordinances. So what does a SRO actually do? Their main goal, build relationships and trust with students, staff, and parents, and these two are fantastic at that. They mentor students, they investigate crimes, prevent crimes, they create a safe learning environment, they're positive role models in the schools. They de-escalate situations, they act on information, tips, and threats. They intervene, engage, stop acts of violence in the schools, and they absolutely serve with integrity, courage, empathy, and respect. So a little research on schools that was done in a partnership between the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Secret Service back in 2002 to develop accurate and useful information about prior school attacks that could help prevent some future ones from occurring was the purpose of this research initiative. Their findings, the Safe School Initiative, indicate that incidents of targeted violence in schools were rarely impulsive. Students who perpetrated these attacks usually planned out the attack in advance with planning behavior that was often observable. Prior to most of the attacks, other children knew that the attack was going to occur. Taken together, these findings suggest that it is possible to prevent future school attacks from occurring. And efforts to identify, assess, and manage students who have intent and capacity to launch these attacks is a good strategy for prevention. Fast forward to 2021, there's another study done by the U.S. Secret Service and the Homeland Security. They analyzed plots against K-12 schools from 2006 to 2018. These findings determined individuals contemplated violence also often exhibit observable behaviors. And when we discover those behaviors, that's how we can prevent the next tragedy. So in the report, there were 67 plots analyzed when a current or former student planned to attack their school, but was halted before the violence actually occurred. The main takeaways from the findings: schools should seek to intervene with students before their behavior warrants legal consequences. Students were most often motivated to plan an attack based on a grievance with classmates. Students are the ones best positioned to identify and report concerning behavior displayed by their classmates. Removing the student from the school does not necessarily reduce the risk of their attack. Targeted school violence is preventable when communities help identify the warning signs and intervene, and school resource officers play a critical role in school violence prevention. A couple other takeaways from the 2021 study: 84% of the schools where targeted violence was stopped were high schools, 15% were middle schools, and 1% elementary schools. Of these attacks, 96% planned to use firearms in the plots. In 70% of these cases, the plotters had access to a family member's firearm. 63% had unimpeded access to those firearms. 42% of the thwarted plots were initially reported to law enforcement or the SRO. Also, parents who learned of these plots then reported the information to the SRO. And students view the SRO as a trusted adult to share plot information with. And 95% of the plotters were current students, 5% were former students. So focusing in on 622 and the safety concerns that we've seen throughout last school year and the current school year, some situations that we dealt with. There was a student armed with a handgun, loaded handgun in a classroom. We learned that this student intended to shoot and kill another student at school this day. Two of the officers who stopped this student and had to fight with this student to remove that handgun are sitting right next to me. We also had several students with firearms on school grounds who played a game of moving it from backpack to backpack and trying to hide it from teachers. 5 students were arrested in that incident. Each student had the weapon in their possession while they were on school grounds. We've had the ATF K-9 out here twice to search the school for firearms in the past few months. We've had a bomb threat, school shooting threat, domestic terrorism investigation. We had North High students pointing handguns at other students as they were walking from building to building. 6 students were arrested in that incident. 2 handguns were found. A significant amount of controlled substances found in the vehicle. A student attempted to attack a school administrator. Joe prevented that assault and arrested that student. Investigations of students posing with pictures of firearms on social media. In those situations, we had met with parents, prevented the violence and potential victimization. Several mental health incidents where medical transportation was required. Often there are fights in the school. We've had handgun pointed at, this one was recently, a handgun pointed at students as they were leaving the parking lot. And then incidents of students destroying a classroom, threatening staff not able to control that student. So we are there to assist. Here's some stats. You can see the biggest concern is the call volume at North High, with it almost more than doubling throughout the past 3 years. So that is alarming, to say the least. A full breakdown of those calls. So there's actually 105 calls in this school year. I removed, so to get to that 88, I took out 14 of them were calls that showed up and they were off-duty incidents. So when we show up to work a basketball game or a football game, we'll pull a number and put ourselves on the board. Those show up as calls. I took those out to get to that 88. The other calls, I think I broke down. So out of those calls, 4 assaults, 3 weapons, 18 investigates or PPVs, 10 juvenile incidents, fights or DOCs, a bomb threat, a robbery, a person in crisis. The other calls that are listed that make up the 88 are a lot of medicals, a lot of assist citizens, a small amount of alarm calls, assisting other agencies, community outreach events, missing person. So most of the calls are concerning. There's a huge number, and that is, and that's not to mention, a lot of the calls are never actually reported. I might have mentioned that to you all in the past, but there's a handful of almost every single day. The SRO in the school, Joe, is handling incidents, and he's solving the problem before it ever turns into creating a call, because he's there and he's preventing things from happening that never amount to him having to get on his radio and ask for backup, because he's already there to stop the fight, to break up the fight, to de-escalate the shouting match that's going on. So the actual call volume would be likely double of the 88 that we already have documented for the year. Here's a comparable district breakdown. So I reached out to the other police chiefs and got some stats from them related to how many schools they serve, how many SROs they have, and some of them gave me their contract costs. So you can see 62, that's us. Maplewood and Oakdale, we have a combined total of 2 SROs in the 3 cities for a SROs to schools percentage of 14. That is the lowest among all of the schools listed, all the other districts. Here's a little further breakdown on what those actual schools are. So there's Maplewood PD. They have 3 elementary schools, 1 middle, 1 alternative learning center. They do have one SRO in Maplewood PD. Oakdale has 2 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high school. They have no SROs. We have 3 elementary, 1 transition ALC, and 1 high school. We have 1 SRO. That brings our total to 14 schools and 2 SROs. White Bear Lake PD, 5 elementary, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, 1 ALC. They have 2 SROs with 10 schools. New Brighton PD, 6 schools, 3 SROs. Ramsey County and District 621 provide service in 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school. They have 3 SROs. Miles View PD also in 621, 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, 1 alternative learning center, 1 SROs. That brings the total to 14 schools and 7 SROs. Roseville PD, 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school, 1 ALC, for a total of 6 schools with 2 SROs. And then Ramsey County also serves District 916, which consists of 2 ALCs, and they have 2 SROs in those schools. So as you can see, we have the lowest percentage of SROs in the districts compared to the amount of schools that we have. So we're not comparable to, as a district, to providing safety through SROs to the other districts who are, they have many more SROs than us. We're also not comparable when it comes to funding. The current contract for this school year is $77,868. Total annual cost of an SRO position, including salary and benefits, is $131,300. With the school year being approximately 291 calendar days, or 79.73% of the school year, you apply that to the salary benefit cost of an SRO, and that amount is $104,000, $104,685 at 49 cents. I averaged out the costs or the amounts that I got from other school districts for their SROs. That equated to $97,156. Looking at District 621 specifically, the city of New Brighton has a contract where $318,719 for their 3 SROs, and they also get $3,000 for the squad cars and $750 for technology and equipment. So we're not in a comparable range when it comes to amount of SROs or funding in the contracts for SROs. So ultimately, we absolutely love being in 622 and the relationships that we are having in the schools and the school staff. They're fantastic. We work alongside of them very well. But our SRO has absolutely prevented fights, crimes, violence in the school buildings. It's a dangerous job. There's no doubt about it. Joe and Amber, in her time in the building, they deal with a lot. And that's why I'm here saying we need another SRO in 622. And I'm hoping to have your support to recommend that to 622 to fund that. This would absolutely allow us to further our ability to prevent violence, assess threats, conduct investigations when incidents do occur, continue building positive relationships for all students, staff, and parents. That additional SRO position would allow us to do that and increase the safety of everybody in the building. I do want to ask you guys if you wanted to, I'm very glad that they came out. I think it's very helpful just for them to be able to share some insights for what the day-to-day reality is of their experiences working in the schools. Instead of just listening to me talk about research and funding, they can paint what it is on a daily basis a lot better than I can working in 622.
Evening, Officer Allen. Currently up there at North High. This is my second stint up there. I'm actually a graduate of North High, class of '99. Go Bowlers. On a day-to-day up at North, like Chief said, There's not a lot of need to pull a case number or necessarily write a report on something that we do up there. But you'll see a kid who's in crisis who wants to get to another kid, or somebody who's having a bad day. You might pull them aside or start moving them to an area where he could, they could get some help as far as preventing something else from happening. A lot of times, like I asked the chief, I'll activate my body camera, but I never pull a case number, just so that interaction I'm having with that particular kid that particular day can be absolutely documented. There's multiple files I have no case numbers for because I'll hit it. We'll deal with the situation as far as what's going on, get them to a room where they could talk to a social worker, talk to a principal, assistant principal, talk to a healthcare worker to help them out. Be their anger that they're seeing red and they can't get over that. It's nice to be there to recognize that and calm that particular person down. It might be a simple fact that you see them rushing for another child and you can stop them from doing that. Get them separated or put them into a safe room where they can kind of get their anger out and figure out what's going on. Well, the North High staff that we work with there can deal with it. North High staff that I do work with, tremendously supportive, great people. They're great at what they do. Sometimes they look at me and say, I can't believe you do what you do. And sometimes I look at them and say, I can't believe you do what you do. So, but we definitely work pretty hand in hand, close together, sharing ideas, talking about what's going on, communicating. I recently came back from some time off. I walked through the door on Monday to 3 kids fighting on the floor right in front of me. So, you kind of hit the ground running when you get into school. From there, you go, people are asking you about looking at camera work for a hit and run that occurred a couple weeks ago. Through our investigative skills, we can figure that stuff out, which we did. Then we're fielding phone calls from parents telling us that the local tobacco place is selling to kids. What are you going to do about it? So it's taking in a lot of information from the staff, the kids there, and kind of disseminating it to figure out what's going on. So yeah, we don't normally pull a lot of case numbers for that stuff that happens, but the stuff that we do, the reports of guns, we take very serious. The kids had a bad weekend. We need to touch base with them, see what's going on. Social workers will come to us and say, hey, I just had a conversation with this kid and something doesn't feel right. Next thing you know, you're calling for an ambulance for a mental health evaluation because that's exactly what they need. So, that's some of the taste of what we deal with daily.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Zakori. I was also an SRO for about, I think, 5 or 6 years up at North High. He actually trained me in, and then when I left, he came back in, so it worked out well. One of the things that stuck with me as an SRO was the statement that I had. It said 15.7% of students carry weapons, gun, knives, or other weapons on at least one day in the past month. That was something that I always carried with me because that meant that at any time a student was walking past me with a weapon. It seems a lot, right? Like, is that true? It is true. I do believe in that. So I knew that the relationships that I had with those kids were important. So we didn't sit in our office. We were in the hallways. We were talking to kids. An SRO day starts before school starts. We have to be there before the kids get there. North has more than one school. So oftentimes that means starting at one school and oftentimes ending at another school. So we're there from before the kids get there, and oftentimes we're there after. We're there for after-school activities. We're there for games. We're there on the weekends. We're there at dances because we have to be, because building those relationships are vital to us solving crimes and preventing crimes. I wrote down something. It said that someone asked me how often I work, and they ask about my hours. And I remember having to look at hours, and it would be 80 hours sometimes, and I'd be like, oops, because I would stay after, because a parent would say I have to work, and I can't get there during the school day. Can I meet you after school? Those are the things that SROs do. I did not know how hard this job was going to be. I watch TV, and the SROs are always reading books to kids in class, and they're dancing in the hallways, and it looked really fun, and I'm like, I got that. I got the dance moves for this. I can do it. It was an exhausting job. It was a rewarding job because to this day, I still run into kids daily who say Officer K. Oftentimes the relationships that we build, they're lifelong. They will continue to ask, where's Officer Allen? Where's Officer K? They remember SROs that I'm like, when did they work here? I don't know who that is, because we talk with our kids. we do welfare checks with our kids. The majority of the intel that we get when it comes to retrieving firearms off of kids, which we do, I don't even know how many times we get intel from kids about a kid with a knife who showed it to them in the class, and they come and they whisper it to us because they're scared to tell someone. I would say the majority of the times that we took loaded handguns off of children was because a child told us that it was happening. And outside of that, it was us being trained to watch the signs, to know something was wrong. I know something's wrong because I know you. And today you came and you're wearing sweat clothes. And today you came and you didn't make eye contact. So I pulled you into the office and I asked questions because I know something's not right. Because that is what we do. We often laugh when people ask you what you do for a living. We don't always get to say, I'm an officer, because we know sometimes that perception isn't great. So we always say, I'm a trained observer, which is code word for I'm a police officer. But that is exactly what we do. And your head is on a swivel all day long. I'm one officer, and in that one school, we had over 2,000 kids. I'm not talking about the elementary schools that I honestly felt like I didn't get a chance to go to and meet with those kids. You know, I tried to go as often as I could, but taking a step out of that high school made me nervous. So that, for me, having a second SRO was invaluable. Being able to feel like we then could do the investigative work that we have to do. It's ongoing. We have our cell phones, which is separate. I keep 2 of them. They ring all weekend. Thanks to social media, we are constantly on there. That's a lot of our tips is Snapchat, Facebook, you name it, which is why my 3 kids who are all high schoolers don't have Facebook because of this job. It's a very hard job. It's a very demanding job. And to ask one officer to float through all the schools that we have at North is, I'm gonna be very honest, impossible. I did this job for 5 years, and you really have to be a special breed of officer to go into school every single day and really know your kids. He talked a little bit about an incident that we had where we retrieved, there's a few, where we retrieved a gun off of a student. That one sticks out to me because that student was new. So there wasn't a connection formed. So people ask, like, how did that happen? Well, because I didn't form a connection. I didn't know who the kid was. And I'm nosy. I'm paid to be nosy. I enjoy my job. So I asked questions, well, who was that and why is he in the office? And that led to the discovery that he had a loaded handgun on him. Again, I'm one officer who was fighting this kid for a very long time, unable to call out for help. I don't know what I called out on my radio, but he heard something and he knows me and he knew that whatever was happening wasn't good, and he rushed to my side. And I will always say that Officer Allen saved my life that day, but he definitely saved that kid's life. The kid left there that day and hopefully got some of the resources at that time that he needed, moving forward from there. But those are the connections that we have with staff. We know when the atmosphere is wrong. We can walk in the morning, and I know this sounds, if you have kids, you know, there's something about those teenage, you walk in, you're like, something's not right. And some kid will tell us, this is what's going on, or they'll say, hey, check the Snapchat real quick. And we prevent a lot of crimes. I wish that we only had 88 reports. That would be lovely. I'd be able to read to the kids. I'd be able to do the things that I really wanted to do and the connections that I wished I had made. Unfortunately, I would say that number is, if not double, triple of the amount of calls that we're unable to put in, because not everything has to be documented, right? If I'm stopping a fight, if I'm preventing something, my job is to do that and not always track those numbers so that people can validate why I'm in those schools. But we are needed, and not just one, several of us are needed to be in that school.
Thank you guys for sharing that. Definitely open it up for any questions council might have.
Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation today and your work in the schools. It is very apparent that the youth especially are having a serious mental health crisis more than ever post-pandemic. So thank you for your work there. I'm just curious on what the school district's wants are. I understand that sometimes there's desires for more social workers or school counselors and things like that. And so what are their wants? Are they asking for an SRO as well? Or, what is that conversation like?
Kind of in the middle of it. So we've had a couple of discussions with them. I'm meeting with them again on the 20th, so, yeah, the conversation's ongoing. It's gonna continue. It's, you know, and I'm sharing with them the exact same things that I'm sharing with you all right now, so, we'll see how that conversation goes.
So they've not like expressed their need, or like, have they expressed a need for an SRO, or is this just you?
The school has absolutely not asked me, can I get another SRO in the building? No.
Thank you.
So as far as the North St. Paul Police, they have, the social workers are provided by the school. The police, as far as the police officers, are the full enforcement. And right now, how are you doing with your mental health? We talk about everybody else's mental health. You as being the one policeman there, and at that time, you know, how is it? Looks like maybe burnout in that kind of position. I mean, how are you doing?
You know, I'm doing good. I have 4 kids at home that make me smile every day, so that's number one. And number 2, I just got done with a good ice fishing season and a good summer fishing here, so that kind of melts that away. But all jokes aside, I've been doing this for 16 years. I'm one of the senior officers here at North St. Paul, so it's a little bit easier for me as far as that aspect of it, and I appreciate your question. It just you do have bad days, and then you have bad days, and then there'll be a good day that'll bring it around. I've befriended a kid that's there that all he wants to do is talk straight fishing, and every time I see him, I kind of just laugh to myself and go, "Wow, this kid's relentless." So, but we talk fishing, so those things I can think about and share with you and smile. And then there's some kids I look at and I go, I don't know what it is, but he and I are going to cross paths someday. And some of those have come true, unfortunately. Not because I've seeked it, it's just the way it is. The intuition, or, you know, whatever it has to be. So as far as my mental health, I'm hanging in there. You know, I'm doing just fine. But you can definitely see the COVID reaction that the kids, you know, being away from school online, and now they're in school, and you know, it's just something about this group of kids right now that they're just wild, and you just got to stay kind of hyper vigilant on that. It's almost second nature, like Sergeant DeCory said. You know, you watch him and you're like, man, that kid never ties his shoes. Now his shoes are tied and he's dressed kind of different. So those things, you know, you just got to stay the path and stay hyper vigilant when it comes to stuff like that. And to be honest with you, when I go home, you know, I step back into dad role, you know, and then when it comes weekend, I step into crappie mode. So, you know, that's just the way it goes.
Sure.
But then come Monday, I'm strapping it back up. So.
And there's 2 floors to the school, or 3?
There's 3 floors. There's actually, not a lot of people know this, there's a 4th floor. It's a hidden floor, but it's only gained access to by the janitorial people. So if you know somebody, they'll put you up there. But there are 3 floors of classrooms on one side, and the main wing is on the main floor, 2nd floor, with the EC as well. I'm sorry, Sergeant DeCory is right. The other school that she's talking about that we have to go to is called the EC Ed Center, is up on top of the hill, the old North High.
Yep.
That's on 3rd floor. We don't necessarily go to the other 2 floors, but it's on the 3rd floor if we have to run up there.
So, I mean, you'd be down on, how did people get a hold of you if there's a situation in the building?
So the school does provide me a walkie. Chief and I do have a walkie. Chief has a walkie in his office, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of times where they just call out, and I just have time to go, and Chief and the troops come running. So, but they do provide me with a school radio that handles that within the school, and then I have my normal squad radio on me as well. So if I need help, I can bonk on that. So
if you're walking down the floor, let's say you're walking down the 1st floor, you know, how many things do you run into during that? I mean, kids doing this and that. Do you pretty much, as you walk down the hall, have to speak to the students as
Yeah,
you
you
go
know,
on?
you'll
Knock
say, hey,
that off, you
hey,
know, how's it
no play
going?
fighting. Play fighting's real fighting. You know, guys. You know,
You can't walk down that hallway without saying something to
no.
students?
And sometimes, to be perfectly honest with you, and I'm not bad mouthing 622. I love 6'2". I grew up in 622. I'm 6'2" through and through. But sometimes you'll hear the language of the kids and it'll make a sailor blush. So sometimes you're like, hey, could you please keep the language down? And maybe sometimes that's just the way some of the kids express themselves. So you got to take that into recognition. You'll hear the racial slurs, which I absolutely hate. You'll say, hey, come on, keep it down. You know, play fighting is real fighting. You know, sometimes you'll recognize a kid that's going on. You'll say, hey, man, how's it going? Basketball kid, ask them how the basketball team is doing, stuff like that. So those are a typical walk through a hallway. To be perfectly honest with you, I like to be kind of the fly on the wall. I'll stand my post and watch what I need to. I don't want to intermix too much with that because I don't want to. Maybe my presence there might make a kid feel unwelcome. You know, we hear a lot on patrol. You know, you never drive down my street. Well, every time I drive down somebody else's street, it's for a reason. Like there's something going on. So if you haven't seen a cop in a while, not to say we're not patrolling your street because we are, but that's a good thing. So for me not to go down that hallway, they don't see me, it won't trigger anything for them, won't set off any bad memories or anything else that might be going on. I'll stay in the background until I need to be to the foreground. But when I need to be to the foreground, it's there. So I don't necessarily walk through the hallways, but I'll have the kids pass me. I guess to better answer your question.
You on a certain floor at certain times, or how does that work? How
I
do we
can't
know
really,
that
I can't really
somebody-
share that with you because it's
Okay.
kind of a
That
super
makes
secret
sense.
cop stuff.
Okay,
But-
yep, I get it.
But yes, at certain times, at certain days, I'll need to be places where I know that something might pop off or something that I need to observe. I might be in the lunchroom one day for a particular. I like to mix it up. I don't like to do the same thing all the time. And sometimes the kids will be like, I didn't know you were here. And you're like, I've been here the whole time.
Would it bring you peace of mind to have another officer in there that's doing the same thing?
I couldn't tell you, you know, when Chief approached me and asked me what I thought about that, I was overjoyed. Just for an example, if DeCory and I were in the school together and something were to happen, and maybe it has to do with a female student that may connect better with her than me, and I can go take over where I need to, or maybe that situation hasn't calmed down where she needs to restrain somebody, then I can go into that situation and help that. Or if there's a call at an elementary school where we need to go, I don't have to feel bad about leaving the high school. Like, hey guys, I'll be right back. I have to go take care of something at an elementary school. And they're like, well, we're just about to start lunch and the day's been kind of pretty wild. So it would make me feel a heck of a lot better knowing that somebody else was there that I could radio and talk to know if something else was going on, I could jet right back there. Or if we're in a situation where maybe they ask us, we get this a lot, requests that come and speak in the classrooms, which we absolutely love doing. Kids can ask us their goofy questions and we can help answer that. But while one of us is taking care of that, another one could be taking care of something else somewhere else in the school if they need that. So to have that as a second option or have somebody else there where we could tag team a call or help take care of a situation, or just by the most part is just in our use of force continuum is just being present. Just being there kills a lot of the action. Oh man, Officer Allen's here. I'm not gonna mess around. I can't even get pushed past them. There's no way I'm gonna get to that kid. So those type of situations were in my mind, especially with these 88 calls that we've been a part of, that I've been a part of, to know that maybe if I had another officer there with me at that time, probably wouldn't have gotten that worse, or probably wouldn't have been generated. That number would probably be a heck of a lot lower. Yeah, we would still have that part where we need to hit our body camera and record, but it maybe have not generated a case number, an arrest, and a transport, or a case number, arrest, and then have them go home with parents. Or it may have just been a trip to the hospital for somebody because they need that help. So to think about that particular option, I can't tell you, the sky's the limit. It'd be awesome.
I just want to just say this real quick. He brought up a good point about having the officer there. I will say that kids tell on themselves. They deal with it a lot of times. Kids will tell on themselves. If you pay attention, they'll tell you what's going to happen. Kids have patterns. When you're in a school long enough, you know the days that are fight days. You know what happens over the weekend, that Monday and Tuesday are gonna be pretty hard, and then here comes Friday, and we know what happens on Friday, because now I don't get to see you over the weekend. When we have those fights in the morning, as he said, he walked into school on Monday, and the fight was right there, because we've been, kids, they spill over. I can't hold my anger, I can't de-escalate, I can't self-regulate. So those fights happen sometimes right away, or they happen at the lunchtime. What happens, though, it's not that the fight happens and now the rest of the day is great. Once that fight happens, the rest of the day, there's going to be another one. Because now the friends who saw the fight want to continue the fight. And oftentimes I've had to call chief and ask if I can get another officer to stand by. Officers will sit in front of the school in the squad car just so that kids can see, oh, there's another officer, so maybe we don't fight today. So we often have to have our day crew come into the school and stand by, or come in and kind of hang out, come into the lunchroom, and we have to have that presence. That's the only thing that has, what I've seen really work to help de-escalate the potential of a secondary fight, and sometimes it's an after-school fight. When we have those fights, we are on alert the entire day. And if that fight happens on a Tuesday, we are on alert the rest of the week, because there's going to be a follow-up with that fight. Most of the times it's at the school, or it's in the parking lot, or sometimes it skips over to Maplewood Mall. But it does happen, and so that is when having the second SRO is so vital, because again, I've had to ask for officers to come in, and I just say I have lunchtime. At lunchtime, North High is closed campus, so at the time it was. So that's up to 500 for lunches, 500 plus kids for lunch that are in a very small room. A lot of hormones, it's a lot of anger, it's a lot of happiness, whatnot. So to have another officer just in the building so I can be in the lunchroom, it's pretty vital, it's pretty important.
And not to keep this going, but to jump on that, sometimes after the fight is done, it's not done. The parents will show up and they'll be heated. So to think about, all right, so Amber's taking care of the kid, and now I got mom and dad heated coming up here. Now I can deflect them into my room, and now I can explain what's going on there, or I can sit with administrative staff while they explain what's going on, kind of calm them down so they don't get it all amped up again. So it's not always the kids sometimes. I mean, people are very passionate about their kids. I would be, my oldest son is autistic, so if something happens, I'm always fired up because I want to know what the heck's going on. But the thing is there may not be a fight. Maybe a teacher gave him a bad grade, or something happened in class, or the teacher, and this happens a lot, may have said something wrong or didn't know what they were saying about that triggered the student. Next thing I know, I got parents calling or parents showing up, and they're fired up. Now, North High has done a great job with their additions as far as the security measures to get through 3 doors to get inside. I can't tell you how many times, it doesn't matter how many doors you got, somehow in some way they find a way to come in. So, so on that, so sometimes it's the parents that we have to deal with. Sometimes they're worse than the kids. So it's not always the kids, but you have 1,600 kids, you're gonna have 3,200 parents, and sometimes they're not gonna like what you say, or you're not gonna like the situation that the school is dealing out. And the school does a great job supporting us as far as if something happens. If the kids need to be expelled or moved on, they're very quick. They're very good at what they do, and I think that's why right now the relationship with 622 is so good. They listen to us, listen to the chief, and they take into consideration what we have to say, and that's huge, is that partnership. So by all means, like I said, I'm never dogging 622. The admin that I work with are fantastic, but like I said, I can't do what they do, and they sometimes say, I can't believe you do what you do. So.
You said 1,600 students, is that about what it is?
Yeah, around there.
A number of.
Yep, 1,600.
So I know when that school was built, they took down some houses and built the school, and I was told right from the beginning the school was too small after they built it.
Well,
how is the hallways in crunching 1,600? I look at that building, to me, that seems a lot for 1,600 kids.
Kids keep it moving. I mean, they do a good job. I like I said, I do see the hallways on cameras, and I do watch that stuff, but it doesn't look like they're scrunched in there. I had to go back. When I graduated from North, I had 2 years at the old school and 2 years at the new school. And at the new school, we could actually use our lockers. Now, we do have lockers at North, but none of the kids that I know of use those lockers. They all have all their stuff on their backpacks, and they're always moving class to class to class. So the thing is I did kind of hear that rumor when we got out of there. I think my class was at 216, and now classes that are graduating are like 600, 700, 800. So they're big. The school, the school is they're doing a huge addition on to have the classes in now. So next year there will be no need for the Ed Center. There's no need for the kids to walk back and forth, which is a nightmare. And next year will be the first year where they have everybody enclosed in the school, and that they had that in a really long time.
Couple more. Does anybody else have anything before I keep going? Okay. So as far as I met with the superintendent, tried to, talk a few things. This is, I guess, when it comes to the students and safety, I lost my son from a virus. I can't imagine losing a child at school from violence, anything like that. So it's just beyond, for me, the security part of it was, and I know Phil had a discussion last year and it didn't seem to be going. So we were trying to just get to the bottom of it. We met with Oakdale, we brought everybody in, Oakdale, Maplewood Chief. We brought in the mayor of Oakdale just to kind of talk about 622 in general. So it's not just us that have been trying to understand and figure out to make sure we have the right safety procedures and the number of people we need. Mental health is huge and but we have to have it safe before we can do mental health. And that's where I want to make sure we get that base first as far as, then we can work our way and make sure the teachers, social workers, parent, everybody is safe. So I appreciate the work you do and understand, multiple floors on buildings can be difficult because how do they get a hold, if they have a situation in the classroom, how do they get a hold of you?
So there are teachers that are strategically placed around the school that do have access to walkies. And there are also, the teachers have a number they can call the behavior team. There's a behavior team that comes out that we call them the yellow team. So yellow team will call on the radio if they need something. I will listen to the radio because I have my own, and I'll say, I better go to that. Or I better start kind of heading that way. Something tells me something's going on there. Or I'll hear the fighting in the background of the radio, and you just go. So we do have certain code words, certain codes that we use, but sometimes it's just something that you're like, maybe I better go just walk down there. And the kids will be fine. Sometimes they'll be fine until I get there, and they're like, "Oh, you had to call the cops." And I'm like, "I just came on my own volition. I'll walk away gladly." So. Sometimes I can amp it up. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. Well, I'll just walk away. I'll just go around the corner. I won't go away, but I'll go around the corner. So, but there are ways they could call me. They can email me. If it's an emergency, they can call the yellow team, or they can use the radio.
What do you wear when you're patrolling?
So, Sergeant DeCory took the way of wearing her uniform. I like to be a little bit more comfortable, so I wear what I'm wearing now is what I wore at school today.
Okay.
I do have my firearm and everything else. I do have tools in my pockets, and I do wear my bulletproof vest over this.
So this is what you look like when you're walking the halls today?
Yes. I do have my badge. I had my second badge here. I don't necessarily wear a placard on my back that says police. Chief has let me kind of relax that part so we could help. It helps me better do my job. Kids tend to like my shoes. I'm a shoe guy, so it kind of gets me a way in to talk to them, and gets me to relate to the kids. But this is primarily what I wear.
I wore a plethora of things, are obviously very different as officers in height and everything else. So there was a strategic reason why I wore what I wore. I did not wear this full. It was modified. I had different color pants, and oftentimes I would wear my hoodie. I kept my vest on me. There's a reason why I have a very strong stance on this. I think that students who see me in the summertime need to feel comfortable with me. So oftentimes for me, if I dressed in a way that they didn't recognize me in full uniform in the summer, I was not approachable. I wanted kids to feel comfortable approaching me in full uniform on school grounds and off. So I made it a point to, at least during my week, I would modify it. I didn't dress fully all the time, but if you were at school like you're supposed to be, you would see me in full uniform and out, and that was strategically because I wanted to. Again, we don't stop seeing our kids in the summer. As a teacher, you get to have those 3 months off. We don't get them off. We work straight through. We work the entire year. So in July, when I'm running into my student who's having an issue, he no longer sees this, or she no longer sees this because she's numb to it. I am Officer K, and now I have a problem and I want to report it to you. And I know you because I saw you all the time. And so I didn't want to then have them be shocked by seeing a uniform that they have not used to seeing. So we do tend to modify depending on what we're doing, but I wouldn't wear all of this. It definitely could be this with a hoodie. I wear a lot of North gear. I'm stocked with a lot of North hoodies that I wore, and oftentimes I would have a vest underneath my hoodie, and I would have my badge stuck to the outside of my hoodie too. So we dress away because we know it's important for kids to be able to come to Joe wearing that or come to me wearing this. So.
Thank you, everyone. Anybody else?
Thank you so much for what you do. Can't say that enough. In the conversations that you're going to have, if you can request this, is there any hurdles besides budget that you foresee coming, or in the opposition?
Yeah, I don't see the district jumping immediately on board at the thought of having a second SRO. Despite everything that you just heard, and the absolute need for it, not only for the safety of students, staff, parents, anybody coming in the building, but the safety for our Joe, our current one SRO. There's no doubt a second SRO would absolutely be an enhancement to his safety in a time where our profession is unfortunately seeing a lot of assaults, and having one officer killed in the line of duty just this weekend. It's a dangerous profession, so there's an absolute desire. Our portion of it is to make sure Joe and the SRO staying safe in the building. But yeah, I can't say how the conversation is going to go. I'm going to present the same amount of information, same type of data to them, but ultimately it is their decision on whether or not they're going to be willing to fund it appropriately or staff it appropriately.
That's all up to 622 as far as their budget. It's there. They can say yay or nay, whatever they need to do as far as that. But we've had a discussion, it was brought up to, as us in general, a couple times about the safety of it. So I appreciate that everybody was able to come in and understand where everybody's coming from on that, and to be able to decide, to be able to show support as far as going forward. It's their decision. We can do due diligence on what we see, and I hope that, like anything else, you have life insurance, you have insurance, is having another officer. You don't know what you walk down that hall, you don't know what you stopped today. There might be a few things that you saw, but there's things that you didn't see. So God bless you, because it's, you don't know what anybody's thinking as far as that. So, but I think as far as where we are, it's just nice to be able to understand where it was coming from and understanding the needs that you see in the school. What we perceive to them, they have to decide on their section of it, if I'm correct.
Correct. Yeah, but having your support in this recommendation would be helpful.
Does the district make you aware of any expulsions in other schools?
Are you speaking of if someone's expelled and then they come to our school and we know about it?
Yes.
I don't know if it's changed. Generally speaking, we have a really good working relationship with our school district.
Fantastic.
So those are conversations that we have pretty frequently. I know that some school districts, depending on their relationship with their SRO, they may not tell them that, hey, we have a kid who may fought a staff member or was expelled from Stillwater, and they're starting on Monday. I would say that at our school, at least that's how it was, they'd let us know, and they'd specifically come and find us to let us know. That's a hot topic for me right now, given the recent events at Harding, them not having an SRO. And I stand by this statement, and I'll say it all day long. Had that school had an SRO and that communication been completed, that I don't believe there would have been a loss of life that day. That communication that you have with the schools and with the students is vital, and it absolutely saves lives. And 622 definitely works really well with us. They trust us because they don't have to tell us a lot of the stuff that they do tell us. But they usually tell us right away that, hey, we have a kid coming in. I just want to share this with you. This is what happened in the past, so they might be, if you could stop in with them. We get asked all the time, hey, can you speak with this kid? This is what happened 2 years ago, and just want her to know she's got someone on her side or someone on his side. So there's beautiful communication with 62 and us. That's great.
Student was expelled from North, was that correct, or not? The one that went over to Harding that was stabbed, was that? Okay, right.
To piggyback on her answer to you, school will tell us, hey, we got XYZ coming in. I'll do my research on it. They've done their research on it, let me know. So now it's my turn to do my research on it, and I can try to find what I can. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's 9 times out of 10 I'll end up seeing that kid, and I'll say, hey, are you new? And they're like, yeah, I just started today. Oh, I'm Joe. Nice to meet you. I'm the school resource officer. You need anything up here, you let me know right away. I'm your guy. And they're like, cool, thanks. So there's another part where we make our connection, but school's done their part to let us know, which is huge. They do a great job doing that. And now it's my part to kind of finish that. Yeah, they may not know what's going on behind the scenes, but we sure take care of that. When I see them, him or her, be like, oh, hey, you're a new student. I haven't seen you before. And then we able to talk to them, introduce ourselves. So sometimes it bears fruit, sometimes it doesn't.
Question, if you don't mind.
You have oh, yes, please do. Go ahead. Go ahead, Brian.
So, as the mayor said, we've had meetings with 622, and they've expressed their concerns as well for the mental health of the students. I mean, they've said that they have 5 counselors, 2 social workers, 2 nurses, and 2 third-party counselors. But she also said that they had 6 security guards, and I don't know if that's a total that they employ, or is there that many there every day? And if so, how do you guys work together? I was just wondering how that worked.
So that's what I refer to as our yellow team, behavior team. So there'll be, I don't necessarily think that they're 6 all the time there, but they definitely, they're definitely there 4 or 5, on a day. One will take the 3rd floor, one will take the 2nd floor, one will take the 1st floor. During passing time and whatnot, we'll stand in strategic places. They help with that. So they are what I consider, or what we consider the yellow team, behavior team. Okay. Behavior intervention that they help out with. A lot of them are on, as far as the behavior team, they'll help counsel some of the kids, or they'll be the ones that'll help escort after a fight or something else that's going on that they've recognized. That'll be their intervention.
They're not, I wouldn't say, I think when people say security, we automatically think of like security cops or something like that. So I'm like, no, they're not walking around. These are individuals that are hired, generally will have some background in education or de-escalation skills. So their job is to make those connections with those kids. They work with them with their homework, they work with them with their expulsions. They are not actually, that I know of, as far as our school in North works. I know that other districts, Oakdale has had security officers who've legit worn security uniforms at a time or two. They've tried that. We have not had a person at North in full-on security outfit, but they do work and their job is to be on the behavioral, or what we call it, yellow team.
They wouldn't break up fights or anything
Yes.
like, they do?
Yes, they
Okay.
would.
So they do have that they can do.
Yeah, they're just not dressed up like a mall security, like a mall cop.
Yeah.
They have a radio and they're in plain clothes and.
And that's their only job, this teacher, they're pulling out of a class to do this, their job is to do that.
No, they'll, if they need someone, like, if the assistant principals need someone to go get a kid out of class, they'll help with that. If they need a kid escorted from one place or another, like they may have lost their hall privileges, they'll take care of that. They do a plethora of things for the school on their side. I guess they are considered security, but they're not secure. Like they are security, but they check doors and stuff like that. But they're not mall cops.
They're not officers. Let's be very clear on the fact that I am 5'2" plus on a good day. I work with people at that school that are, how tall are you, 6'4"? I'm not gonna guess. 6'4", not. I'm in full uniform. I have more authority than a lot of people at that school. So when you see me coming down the hallway with my voice saying you to stop and back away, because I'm in uniform and because I have that authority, I'm able to de-escalate that situation a lot faster than someone who doesn't have it. And kids are brutal. They'll tell you. You have to have very thick skin. I've gone home and been like, do I really look like that? Like, you have to you have to have thick skin. So having the officer, it's the presence, and they know we have the authority to stop a situation, and we have authority to say, hey, we're going to remove you from the situation now. Not if you're a teacher at the school or even staff, you don't always have that same authority. So it's nice to have them there. It's nice for them to step in. But oftentimes with them, if there's a risk, they can choose. They choose, and they have, and I would too. They've chosen not to because this could inevitably result in their injury or a kid's injury because they don't always have the training that we have. So I respect their decision sometimes to. Often they'll take a step back because they don't want to be hurt. So.
Appreciate it. Or anything else? Any more questions, Brad?
Nope.
Chief, thanks. There was a lot to unpack in what you just went through. Greatly appreciate everything. Thank you for the added pages you added. Answered a lot of questions for me as well, so I sincerely appreciate that. Your crew's awesome. They're a complete asset to the city and asset to the school. Couple questions. Is this a time-based decision? Do you need an answer tonight? And I'll explain why. I would love to hear what the school district may have or not have to say, first off. And the second part is, this doesn't ensure that we get a second SRO in school, does it? It's basically the city saying, we support the direction of moving that way, but they can still say no, correct?
They can still say no. We have a contract with them that we do have to sign. So we can either sign or not sign the contract based on what's in that contract. But yeah, ultimately the school would have to, if we propose a contract that says, this is 2 SROs and at this amount, then the school could not sign or sign. So it has to be, both sides on board for whatever the language of the contract is. This doesn't guarantee, no, this isn't, we could say, here's how we want the contract, which is kind of what we would be doing if the council decides to vote on making this request, but then they could not sign it if that's the language that we have in the contract. So, yeah, it has to be a mutually agreed upon contract.
And then, because the other piece of that onion, as you peel it back, is the cost. Looking at it, we are the city is being underfunded for the resources that's currently being provided.
Absolutely.
So, wholeheartedly agree with that as well. So, other than that, I really don't have a lot of questions, other than I would love the opportunity to give the school district the opportunity to talk. Well, if they choose not to, that's entirely up to them. But if it's a decision, and so table it for tonight, but if it's a decision that needs to be made, that's fine as well, so.
Time definitely is of the importance with their school budget cycle is a little different than ours, and I think theirs has to be finalized early June. I'd say you're more than happy to attend the meeting that myself and the other police chiefs have on Thursday, if you'd like to participate in that conversation. But we've met with them. City managers met with them. The mayor's met with them. I've met with them and had discussions about this issue. So I'm pretty confident I know where they stand on this. I'm also aware that they might be getting a lot of funding coming their way from the state, which does kind of I would imagine, take funding out of the conversation as to a reason why not to fund even the one position appropriately or fund the second position. I don't think funds would be an excuse why to not do it. And thanks for saying that, and I absolutely agree. Amber and Joe are some of the best there is, and the compassion that both of them had in their voices, telling you stories. They truly are. I mean, watching them, I'll show up on a call, whatever the incident is going on, and with Joe currently and Amber when she was in there, and it's amazing watching them work. They solve problems, they stop fights, they prevent fights. They're connected to these kids. They know probably almost all the kids in the entire school by first name. They know their parents. They know their siblings. These guys are members of the school, and it's awesome watching them work. They're great cops and even better people, and they do amazing things for that school district, and any school district would be happy to have them as their SRO, and I'm absolutely happy that it's 622 in North St. Paul that has them.
Another quick thing from our meeting that I wanted to mention is Oakdale did not have an SRO. They had it was a full police officer. He worked for the police department. Is that correct?
Yeah, Oakdale didn't have a licensed police officer at all,
And they were having trouble, so they had their, you know, I don't know what's the word you call it, referendum, or I don't know how you phrase what we're doing tonight.
It's kind of a memorandum.
Memorandum, thank
agreement.
you, I couldn't think of the word. So they're going for the two full-time. So after the meeting is, you know, we had a good hour-and-a-half conversation and the Maplewood police chief also was there, and he said, we don't have a high school, but, you know, if they gave us one for an SRO, we'd give it to, you know, one of you, either Oakdale or Tartan, because you guys have the high school kids. So he volunteered to give his if they would have got one as far as Maplewood, because he sees the need for it.
Yeah.
So just a little more background on what we discussed with that. And they passed theirs at their last council meeting last week, I think it was. So, thank you. Anything else? All right.
Do you want to put that to vote for a
Yep.
resolution?
That works.
I would like to move to table it because I do have concerns about the school not wanting. I think that says, I just want to understand a little bit more why, I guess. I mean, why is there such a strong stance of I rather not or whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speculate as to why not, given all the data that we have and the qualitative stories that we just heard. You know, I hate to believe it would be anything along the lines of what Minneapolis and St. Paul did to get rid of all their school resource officers or any kind of anything related to that notion. That would be unfortunate, but if funding is not a question or not an issue based on state funding coming in for all the public schools in the state, you know, given the data, we look at that and it says that the need is there, and it's our job to make a safe environment for schools and kids and parents and teachers in North St. Paul. That's what it's telling us. That's what the stories of all the things that happen are saying. Here's how we accomplish a safer environment. So I don't know what other data I could possibly provide to paint the picture of what's going on.
Anybody else have any concern? Or moving forward? For a vote?
I mean, I still wouldn't mind hearing from the school district. I didn't realize there'd been as many meetings as they had, so thank you very much. But I too would love to hear what they have to say. I kind of already know where my head is on the topic, but in order to make an informed decision, you like to hear both sides, for me.
Well, part of it is our recommendation as far as what we see as a city. Am I correct with how I'm looking at that? Anybody?
So Lisa moved to table it, but I haven't heard a second. I would move to vote to approve.
Okay.
I apologize. A lot of my realm here as far as where we moved to what?
I move to approve.
So you second my motion?
I don't know how that works. I'm
don't know how-
lawyer guy.
Lawyer.
Yeah.
Sorry, you got a new mayor here.
So the couple of things. So first off, Here, a move to table. A move to table means put off till later in the meeting. I believe you probably meant move to postpone, which would be to put off until a future meeting. We would then need to deal with that, which means either if there's no second, then there's no vote on it, or if there's a second, then there would need to be an up or down vote on that meeting, or that motion, before we then move to a motion for a vote.
Okay, so it's Councilmember Wong's first one. So is anybody gonna second Councilmember Wong, is what I'm hearing, as
So
far as the.
I'll second Councilmember Wong.
Okay,
Now do we discuss?
now, yeah, discuss,
now do we-
or do you vote?
Go to the law book.
I believe we've had our discussion, so I believe now it would be a vote on the motion to postpone.
Okay. All those to vote to the motion to postpone, say aye.
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 All those vote against, say nay.
Nay.
3-2. Okay. Now we have to move a motion for,
Now I move to approve?
So you would move to approve the resolution?
Yes, the resolution, sorry.
okay, Councilmember Norby moved to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Schwiers. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Nay.
Nay. All right, 4-1. Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The next city business action item and recommendation is the Housy Park Court reconstruction project. So back in February 7th, the city council authorized advertisements for bids for the Housy Park construction project. When they came back, they were about $75,000 over what we thought they were going to be. So we are looking to put that off until next year. Brandy has done good work with putting request into the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources for the Outdoor Recreation Grant Program, which has the potential of paying for half of that project. And just a reminder, this project is improvements including courts that will accommodate 4 pickleball courts, including net system and fencing to account for potential future tennis court play, concrete walks from Charles Street to access the playground and court, and an alternate for ADA walkway and appurtenance work. So right now, we're asking council to accept and reject all the bids that came in and put this off until 2024 to rebid.
It took us 2 years to get here. Before we motion, is that allowed? Are there any safety concerns that this project we're going to address that are going to need to be addressed if we reject all bids?
I'm going to turn that over to Brandy.
I turned it over to Ron, and he assured me that no, there are no safety concerns. So the courts are still open to use.
Then I move to approve the motion.
I'll second.
It hurts too much.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next up is reports of city manager and departments. We have John Wick here for electrical director to discuss. Hey, John.
Thanks for staying to the end.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
A little update on our department here. North St. Paul Electric Utilities, I'm John Wick, the director.
Is it, oh, lights has to be on.
Is that better?
There you go. You got it.
And then, so I'm John Wick, the electric director, and Easton Dale is the superintendent. Next. A little bit about us. We have 6,637 meters in service. Of those meters, there are 546 commercial meters, 6,091 residential meters, roughly 74 miles of distribution lines within the city limits, and some in Oakdale, some in Maplewood. That all stems from one distribution substation located on, in Oakdale on the, just off of Highway 120. Our distribution line voltage is 13,800 volts. We currently staff 7 line workers, 2 of which are apprentices and 5 of which are journeymen. We also staff a utility locator for the underground electric and water and sewer. Myself and the superintendent are also both qualified journeyman line workers. To be a lineman with the city, some of the basic qualifications: you need to have a high school diploma. You need to have completed a line worker training program. There's 3 of those programs in the state, the closest being Dakota County. Once you're hired as a lineman with the city, you are required to complete a 4-year apprenticeship. We recognize that year of training as a part of your apprenticeship, so it's really 3 years with the city. And then once you're a journeyman, you go through ongoing training with the organization MMUA that we're a part of, Minnesota Municipal Utility Association. Our group is very tight-knit, and they built a lot of trust with each other. It's a line of work where you're working with things that are potentially hazardous and life-threatening, and you're working across from someone that you need to trust that they're looking out for your best interests. They're not going to do something to put you in danger, and you're not going to do something to put them in danger. That's why part of our apprenticeship is you're not touching the high voltage lines for the first year to 2 years until it's been recognized that you're trustworthy and that you're someone that we believe can do the job safely. Next slide. A little bit about our system. We currently have 12 solar customers. That's actually, it's 12 this year. At the end of last year, we were at 10, so that's already 2 more this year. Seems to be pretty much a trend of 3 to 4 a year we're gaining on the system. They range in capacities. Those numbers probably don't mean much, but on the low end, you're talking about like 1 residential house roughly, up to the high end where, you know, it's potentially more than that. The application process with the contractors that build those solars, we have a rebate system. They send in the specs for the solar panels, and then our power agency calculates a rebate based on those specs, and then it's credited to the customer's bill. They're also given a credit for the production of the solar meters towards their power bill. The power bill is bunched in with all their utilities, so it's credited to everything. The one hiccup with the solar is the high upfront cost. There are a lot of programs out there to bring that down, but ultimately it's a long period of time to regain your investment. That's kind of seems to be the hang up right now. Go to the next one. Kind of a brief description of some of the upcoming projects for this year, and really it's just outlining some of them we have on the docket right now. The Lily redevelopment, Chippewa Beam Indian Way area, we're relocating overhead to underground. 7th Avenue lighting, that's what's currently going on right out in front of the VFW there. We took down all the lighting. The contractor is going to put in new conduit, new bases, and we'll reinstall the lighting, pull in the new circuit. It'll all be controlled off of one lighting controller. I'll touch more on that in a little bit. 17th and Delaware, something that we have a plan for. I've heard that there's development interest there, and there'll probably be a need to relocate the overhead lines. Silver Lake, there's some old decorative lighting up there that needs to be upgraded. We have all the stuff in inventory to do so. And then Sherrell's Cafe is just a smaller project that we've had on the docket as well. I'll touch on that later. With the Lily, it's a major job. Behind the Lily redevelopment, there is a main feeder line. We have 4 main feeders in town that each feed about a quarter of the town. In order to relocate that line, a lot needs to be done. We need to install pad mount equipment, have conduit bored in. We need to pull in all new circuitry, transfer it over to that, and then the building itself is going to require a substantial transformer. Once that's complete, though, we would wreck out the overhead lines, and once the existing utilities on those poles are gone, we'll remove those poles as well. Here's just a brief overhead map on the next slide. Probably a little hard to see up there, but it's basically from North St. Paul Drive to the post office that all the poles would be going away. Chippewa Beam Indian Way, it's a project that we actually started. I said 2022 on there, but it was really fall 21 because of supply chain issues. One of the things that was on the consent agenda was the fuse cabinets. We have fuse cabinets coming in for that job, but they were almost 2 years from when we ordered them to when we could get them. They've come down on those ones at least. We're able to get them in about 6 months now. But once we've installed those fuse sectionalizing cabinets, we'll be able to finish pulling in the wire, transfer to the new underground, and wreck out the old overhead. Kind of the area there, you can see it's from about Beam to Helen, or Beam to Helen, Beam to Shoshone, McKnight to Helen, that area there. And on that one as well, we currently have about 3/4 of it done. We're just waiting for those cabinets. The 7th Avenue lighting, I kind of touched on that already, but yeah, we'll be, as soon as the contractor installs the needed conduits and the bases, we'll finish the rest of the job. 17th and Delaware, there's been development interest in that lot. It's another feeder line that would need to be relocated. As part of planning for the Lily job, we kind of planned ahead for that as well and purchased enough conduit and wire to replace that as well. Those fuse cabinets that we were purchasing will supply that area as well. We'll have to bore in a 6-inch conduit on that job as well. It'll be on the north side of 17th, from about First to McKnight. Delaware, actually, excuse me. You can go to the next slide, Carrie. Next one. Silver Lake, I don't know how many of you guys have been up there recently, but there's old concrete lights that are kind of not strategically placed anymore. They had a purpose when they were put in that way, but they don't really serve a purpose anymore. They're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So we would install a new run of conduit, put all new light bases along the walking path, and install our green Hall of Fame lights, the same ones that are downtown. And then we would upgrade the lighting circuit. Right now it's all direct buried, and this would all be in conduit. And that's kind of the scope of the area there. We'd actually, on that map there, we'd actually have one more light to the west of the tennis courts as well, on the trail. Then Sherrell's Cafe is it's a pretty minor job, but it's an area that's been a frequent flyer for squirrel outages and tree branches, taking out the primary, and with those businesses being there, it's a common occurrence. We'd relocate the overhead line there, install some underground conduit, and the only places that would really be affected would be Sherrell's Cafe and then the residential home to the north, 5061. That's in Oakdale, yes. Yeah, yes, that address probably throws you off a little bit. There's a visual of it. We have 2 phases that run back there because they need 3-phase power, and to generate 3-phase power, you need at least 2 phases of primary voltage. So we need to bury 2 phases. Some of the concerns I see coming down the pipeline for our department, supply chain, it's affected everybody. But especially with some of our crucial equipment, transformers, our pad mount transformers are about 2 years for new ones. You can scrape by with refurbished ones, but you're kind of rolling the dice there with what you're gonna get. We've also had to branch out to distributors that we just have less history purchasing from. You kind of know what quality of product you're getting from the people that you've worked with in the past, and just because of the lead times, we've had to branch out to companies that, they're saying they're going to supply the same product, but we really won't know until it's actually here. We've also noticed a lack of bids and quotes, just because the distributors can't supply the inventory that we need. A lot of the bigger utilities have a side quota that's put aside to them, and they can just dip out of that, and as a municipal, we have to kind of fight for ourselves to get what we need. Requires a little bit of more planning ahead. What you need is just not readily available. So trying to look forward a year in advance, and a lot of the things that I've been asking for as of recently have been trying to secure our inventory moving forward. Excuse me. Another concern with that would be that when the availability does arise, there's a lot of competition for it and not a lot of time to make a decision on what you want to buy. It's not on everything, but it happens with wire, transformers, things of that nature. And from what I can tell, this is probably the foreseeable norm for, I don't even know when things will be back to normal again. So it'll just be a lot more planning ahead than what we're used to. Yeah.
Do we need more storage as far as buying things ahead and keeping it in stock when we have something like that? Or how do we, if you said it's gonna keep coming, how are we gonna be prepared for?
So we do keep a decent stock of the necessities at our shop. There have been distributors that have offered to, if we can make a commitment to them, put aside stock for us, but then you're not locking in a price. It's whatever price they're gonna offer you when the time comes that you need it. And then when we're shopping around trying to find the best deals, these transformers in the cost of equipment here, they're going up double, triple in price in the last year. We purchased transformers in 2020 for anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 based on the size, and we're getting quotes back anywhere from $7,000 to $9,000 for a single transformer. And I think it's all due to the supply chain issues and the core materials. There's a competition for the core materials amongst the automotive industry right now. They're basically, it makes more sense to sell to them for what they're making. The return on investment just isn't the same when you're building a transformer core. So it's just, there's a lot of competition with that, and these manufacturers aren't pumping out as many transformers as they used to. We have seen, though, that other materials are starting to stabilize. I don't know if that's a turn in the right direction. We don't use a lot of lumber, but PVC has come back down substantially, and we use a lot of PVC conduit in our line of work when we're relocating the overhead lines. For a while there, a 10-foot stick of 2-inch conduit was like $14 for one stick, and we were buying it, $2-3 a stick, 2-3 years ago. So it all adds up really fast, but it's starting to come back down. If that answers your, I kind of rambled on there, but if that answers your question, yeah.
I just get concerned when everybody talks of, every commercial's electric car, electric this, electric that, and you're telling us that it's hard to find supplies and everything else, so it kind of
I do
makes
have
my
a
heart
slide
sink a little
on,
bit thinking about
electric
it.
vehicle charging stations coming up as well. It's actually my next slide. We have been planning ahead, and a lot of that's thanks to, Brian was my predecessor. He had the foresight to be able to see that, we need to be prepared. This is something that's coming. There's no way around it. So the whole downtown has many runs of extra conduit throughout it for running some power to wherever it's needed, really. The only thing that's a concern is having to either upgrade existing equipment or add completely new power sources. One charging station, at least in my eyes, can be equivalent to a single-family home service. There's 60 amps a leg for a charger, at least the ones we've been dealing with as of recently. So they demand a lot of load, and some of our transformers are already maxed out, so it'll be upgrading those transformers to accommodate those needs or adding a second transformer in that same circuit. We have the means to do it. It's just going to be an expenditure that's needs to be attempted to plan for, at least. A lot of residents are putting them in their garages. It has kind of cooled off lately. We haven't had many requests for it. Most electricians want to see a second service run to the home just for the car charger, just because of the demand on that charger itself. And we can basically just treat that as adding another home to that transformer in the calculations for what size transformer needs to be there. And so as that continues to grow, there may be need to upgrade transformers. And then with the downtown, I don't see an issue currently with how we have it set up, but if it just continues to grow, we'll have to just keep accommodating the need. Pretty short and sweet. I'll open it up to questions, and then if there's any you can think of after, you can always feel free to reach out to us, and we can point you in the right direction or try to answer it for you.
Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. I'm just wondering what number of EV chargers the new infrastructure downtown can hold, or what the capacity.
Yeah, and
looks like.
I couldn't give you the total off the top of my head.
Sure.
If you want to go back to that previous slide, Carrie, currently we're planning for ones to go in the new parking lot behind KJ Catering, and then when time comes to do behind Newman's, we're planning on putting 2 there as well. At least that's the initial planning at this point. I don't see any issue with that, and like the new developments have been talking about putting charging in their parking lots. It's all stuff that'll be just as it comes in, we can address it type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's about what I could tell you at this point.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it had like some ratio or something like that of.
I don't have the magic numbers right now.
Yeah, that's all good. I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, the one in front of City Hall, is that charge one, or is it more than one vehicle?
Dual charge.
Dual charge. 'Cause I know ours is always sitting in a spot, so I don't know if it's taking up there's only one spot there or what?
I think Brandy must have left. I think she uses it.
Oh, good. I'm glad it's dual, because I always see that car sitting there. I think, is it blocking it the whole time for people that want to use it? That's good. Thank you.
Not sure.
Now, Councilmember Norby?
Thank you very much for your presentation. As a new council member, apparently I had a misconception. I assumed that our utilities were the same boundary as our city, but because we were working on Cheryl's Cafe, just realized that's not. How was what you service determined?
Well, the boundaries have been established long before any of us were present here. You know, we service from going into Oakdale all the way over to Granada on the north end of town, from about 40th up to it's like 52nd, yeah, upper 52nd, something like that. So it's a substantial area in Oakdale, probably like a quarter of the north end of their town, something like that, and then a small part of Maplewood as well. And it's just, that's how our service territory expanded. We're about to our limits. There's really no room for expansion unless somehow XL was willing to give up something. We're to our borders, surrounded by them completely. That distribution substation that we come out of, we share with XL. They're on one side, we're on the other. We have one distribution transformer that feeds the entire city and our whole territory.
Where in Maplewood is the border of Maplewood? I mean, Oakdale, how far, is it South Maplewood, like down by Hill Murray, or is it?
No, it's very small over in Maplewood. We're, McKnight, to the west of McKnight. We go up to like Beam.
Oh, just kind of filling that little hole over there?
There's a hole over there, and then as you get over towards like Maplewood Public Works, we supply Maplewood Public Works with power. That's about the border to the west.
Thank you.
Yeah. I also had some pictures if anybody wanted to see them. I don't know if it's appropriate to approach the bench and if anybody wants to see. Just the guys at work, stuff like that. I don't know if anybody cares to see them, but
Yeah.
feel free to check them out here.
And also, I'd like to, while you're walking, that's fine. I just want to tell you how we appreciate our electrical service. The dentist that's in the medical building here lives in Oakdale, and he looks over, his power's out, and North St. Paul is up. So, the tree trimming, the stuff you guys do with the wet snow we've had this winter, with the limited amount of issues we had, that really is a testament to how you guys take care of stuff. So it's very greatly appreciated for all of us.
Something I could briefly add to that is, I don't know if anybody was familiar with the incident on Highway 120 last week where we had to close the road down. That was a pole that was hit by a drunk driver. XL Energy owned the pole. We used the pole to cross into Oakdale. So we had customers out of power on that pole. And the way XL Energy kind of operates is they send a troubleman out to assess the damage. He dispatches a crew or recommends what's needed. In that instance, they switched out their line, and the recommendation was to have a construction crew set a pole and to reattach their phases. They needed traffic control, and they needed a crew out to dig the hole and fill the hole. It took them roughly 4 hours to get the pole set. In that time frame, we could have had a dozen poles set. It's just a little bit frustrating. We had about a 7-hour outage due to that situation, and that's something I would say residents in the city are just not used to that. And it probably frustrates them greatly when they're out of power that long, maybe not used to that. And I think it's just a testament to the response time of our guys that are on call. And if we have an outage over a half an hour, people are surprised. So.
Well, and there's so many people that use CPAPs, use oxygen, use all these other things where they can't be down. So that is, we're an older community, and there's a lot of different people that need, power for life-saving. So thank you.
People working from home too now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely, we used to be able to just, walk a block to take the power out real quick, and it's not the case anymore. People do not want their power off at any moment, so it's definitely a hurdle that's it's arisen since COVID.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice to Me too.
Yeah, no.
Did a nice job for first time. Congratulations, you're good.
Alrighty.
We've got about a half an hour worth of questions, so.
Oh, attaboy. He bet we're going to 10 o'clock, so just ignore
We're
him.
making it 10.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. No, John, thank you. Awesome presentation. You're right. We are spoiled by being in North St. Paul, and I was really hoping you're going to come in and bash the predecessor and what a rotten thing you inherited. But, you know, you took the high road, so I got to applaud you for that.
I definitely appreciate if Brian wouldn't have remained in the city, it would have made taking this job on a lot more difficult. He's a major resource to us because he knows he's been there before. He's done it all. So
You a Dakota County graduate too?
yeah, yep.
96. I was on the low voltage.
Oh,
I was one of the inside
They were across the
wusses.
hall from us.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I was down the road inside.
Oh, good.
Down the hall. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Reports for council commissions and committees. Councilmember Norby.
The Planning Commission met last Tuesday. They are reviewing the comprehensive plan and the current zoning plan and are working on the recommendation on how to align the two. They needed a little bit more time and research, so it's going to be the same agenda for next week, but should have it to you hopefully in April.
Nice. Thank you. Councilmember Wong.
Yeah, the Arts and Culture Commission has been pretty busy. They've posted, Carrie posted, I should say, the voting for the utility boxes, and a big thank you to John, too. He took me and another commissioner around to learn about transformers and all these types of different boxes that we can wrap. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the results are. I think we've already gotten in over 100 responses, so I think that's really great engagement for our community. We'll start with 2 boxes, and then there will be phases to follow, and then Sue Springborn was really helpful too in identifying some historic photos for the boxes outside of Roddy's. So things are moving along and looking really good, and yeah, really excited about
Your
that.
first 2 downtown.
Yes. Yeah, 1 will be downtown, 2 Roddy's, and then 1 will be one of the larger boxes. What is that called, Brian? Switchgear. Outside the M&I homes. So, yeah.
For long, you'll be climbing the poles with the guys.
All right, let's do this.
It's you in those pictures.
We'll see you up there. Councilmember Scheer.
I get to meet with the team next Wednesday, so I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, I don't have anything until the next meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole.
I'll keep it quick. EDA had their meeting last week. The primary topic of the EDA meeting was Fall Roundup Parade. And just that Fall Roundup Parade's been a longstanding North St. Paul tradition. Over the years, the event's been hosted by the History Cruisers, as well as the Business Association. And there's some challenges taking place. The state auditor is kind of poo-pooing on the fact that cities would fund celebrations. And the lawyer's nodding his head, which isn't always a good sign either, but thank you. So Carrie and Brent Gary made a presentation to the EDA. There is a way that we're hoping that the EDA can fund this event as a way to bolster the city, not necessarily as a celebration, but as a marketing tool. Because I think Carrie said it, and I agree that we're going down. If this goes down, it's going down with a fight. So next meeting is Wednesday the 9th, 3 o'clock in council chambers.
I heard that fireworks are allowed for.
Fireworks are supported, but not
fireworks up
parades.
during the
Yeah.
parade, would it work?
Yep.
Would that cover us? All right. Well, I skipped town last week, so thank you for the update on the EDA, because I did not make it, so I appreciate it. So, any other general business? Councilmember Norby? Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, I guess Betty McCollum's office has chosen one of our bills for the community center specifically, and it will go up for discussion now. So we're one of 15 projects she's chosen, or she chose 15 of probably very a lot. So it looks really good for us, and hopefully things go well. We can work on that community center.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwer. Councilmember Cole.
I've got one, and I'll probably repeat it again next time. As many may or may not know, St. Mark's Church across the street from the high school does host a space for police officers on duty, providing them with food, beverage, a spot just to sit down and rest for a little bit when they need a break. There was a note in the flyer this past Sunday that they are looking again for more donations for the police officers. Anything single serve, cookies, crackers, whatever, in a single serve type package, as well as any type of beverage, water, soda, juice. You can drop off donations at the church office and just write down North St. Paul Police Department on the donation if anybody chooses to drop off.
That's great. We saw that when I went to my ride along, so it's just a nice spot. They have the toys there for kids if they have, or blankets. It's just really neat what St. Mark's did. So it's really a welcoming for the officers and if they need things for families. So it's really a great opportunity to help them out. Anything else as far as that? Can I move to adjourn? Anybody move it?
So moved, Your Honor.
Councilmember Schwer, she's not for it. There you go.
Second.
Oh. Councilmember Cole, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. It was a long night. I appreciate